Pandora's box is about to open wide.
Welcome once again to Pandora's box, everyone. We've got a special guest in the studio today. My Uncle Dom, absolute legend. A local legend and always a legend to me, man. I said, definitely wouldn't be the person I am today without you.
That's very nice to say, mate.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely true, man. And let's say thanks very much for coming on the show today. So just to give a little bit of background about yourself. So you were a police officer for about 20 years. Was it about 20 years?
25 years, just shy.
25 years?
Yeah, 25 years.
Cool, man. Time flies, doesn't it?
Quarter of a century.
Because obviously I remember before you were a police officer, so that's crazy. You're sort of mechanic before that. Always been absolutely crazy about bikes and crazy about training as well, working out. That's obviously the main thing that's sort of rubbed off on me growing up. Obviously, you're 10 years younger than my mum, so obviously my mum sort of used to pie me and my brother off on you quite a lot when I was really small, when I was really young. And I remember like my mum would say, me and your dad are going out for the evening, and we'll go in there, blah 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 blah. Like, who do you want me to ask to look after you? And I'll just be like, Uncle Dom.
Of course, yeah.
Because the thing is, and maybe some other people out there can relate as well. Obviously, it's lovely spending time with your grandparents, and really nice. Obviously, nice homely environment. You sit on the sofa and have some toast, whatever, watch some telly. But when we'd be with you, it'd be like completely different. Because I remember like, what was your girlfriend when you that lived it? Was it Howie Bridge or Burnham she lived in? When I was really little, she gave me a little white teddy bear. Was it
Sharon?
Sharon.
Yes.
I remember being in like the back of the car, and you and her would be in the front, and just like doing like handbrake turns and
That's
stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Like in like a was it a Ford Escort you had at the time?
I had a Ford Escort. She had a really nice Vauxhall Nova GSI.
Right.
Really fast car in its day.
Right.
Yeah, it was.
What
great.
colour was that?
That was a grey colour.
Right.
Yeah, she used to go absolutely mad because I used to sort of say, "I'm just borrow it and take it easy," and it was wild. It was great.
Yeah. But yeah, I remember stuff like that, and I remember going to the gym with you. I remember you used to train at Splash Gym at the time, so there used to be a big swimming pool and gym in Bridgewater Town called Splash, wasn't it? And it was there for a long time. I'm pretty sure it was opened by Princess Diana randomly.
Really? I think it was, yeah.
Yeah, I think there was a little plaque outside, wasn't it, that said that it was opened by Princess Diana back in the 80s or something. But
I miss Splash a little bit. I used to like that.
Yeah, it was sort of like, it was sort of like a big part of sort of Bridgewater, wasn't it, for about 25 years, 30 years, something like that. But anyway, yeah, you used to train in the gym there, didn't you? And I remember I used to go there back when I was, probably like 3 foot tall or something like that with you. And I would obviously just like sit and watch you train. Mm-hmm. And I remember you doing like chin-ups, and I remember it had one of those ceilings, a bit like, you'd have like ceilings in like schools where it'd almost be like little, I don't really know how to explain it. It would almost be like little like MDF squares.
That's right.
And I remember the bit
suspended ceiling. Yeah,
and I remember the bit over the chin-up bar. I remember it had that one bit taken away because you obviously were you're so on it with your training. You'd always, rather than doing it like half reps like you see a lot of people, you'd always do everything full range of motion. I remember you'd take your chin up so high, your head would be like in the ceiling.
Yeah.
And you'd be like looking.
I think I was doing muscle ups before they were invented.
Yeah, man. Yeah. But I remember literally sitting there and sitting and to be fair, I used to do the same with my old man, because my old man used to take me to the Webbington sometimes, and there was a gym there. And I used to do the same with him. I remember I used to like sit and watch you and my old man when you train, and I just think, I can't wait until I'm old enough to train. Because obviously back in those days, like, you might get away with it for a minute, like in a gym, you try and pick up some like dumbbells and you try and copy, what like someone's doing, but soon some PT or some manager's going to come in and say like, start having like a go at you or my old man or something, because let's face it, you're not supposed to be in a gym until you're 16, I don't think, in England.
I don't think so.
Something
no.
like that.
No.
I think I started when I was about 15, because obviously I could just get away with it because I looked a lot older than I was. But yeah, it's massive inspiration to me in that regard, dude. And always like set the bar super high, because obviously you're naturally going to compare yourself to your peers. And obviously you set the bar like so high for me, like in terms of training. Like, don't get me wrong, obviously our strengths are different. We're obviously like naturally like built different and stuff. You're like faster and got better cardio, and I'm stronger and stuff like that. But still, it's like that idea that in your mind you're pushing it to the limit. Like every session, you're leaving everything in there, and like super respect that. Always like sort of had that in mind, and thought, I want to like emulate that, and just absolute respect to you, man. I said it's crazy some of the things that you can do physically. I think especially like without trying to make you feel old or something, like you're in like your 50s now.
Yeah.
And I remember did you see an episode of Pandora's Box we did like a while ago? with this world champion, like CrossFitter, bench presser, powerlifter. Her name was like Ruta Lendrietta. She's from Lithuania originally. Okay. Really nice woman. You get on with her a lot. Yeah. She's really positive, as you can imagine. Super hard worker, like naturally.
Yeah.
She was born. I think she's like in her like late 40s, something like that. So like similar age to you. But when she grew up in Lithuania, it was still part of the Soviet Union.
Right.
It was before the Soviet Union collapsed. Okay. So it was like everyone was poor. Like every day, like there was no like fat people in Lithuania. She said because you wouldn't have the money to be fat. No. Like people, every family was living off scraps. You'd go to like the shop, and sometimes there would be like nothing on the shelves.
Yeah.
But she grew up in Lithuania, moved to Britain, and she got into training quite late. I don't think she got into training until she was until she was about our age, like 30, something like that.
Yeah,
like
it was when she came over, wasn't it?
I think it wasn't until she was like 30 or something. She got into training. Yeah,
that is late.
But literally within a few years, she's super lean. I said she does CrossFit. You get on with her really well.
Yeah,
she's really lean, but like very strong, great jack of all trades athlete. But do you remember when you sent me like a picture of like a 5K time?
Yes.
A couple of months ago.
Yes.
And what time was that again? It was like something crazy. Or it was a bit over 5K, actually. I think it might have been like 6K or 5.8K.
It was 5K, 18, something like 18.
18 minutes.
Yeah. I can't remember. Was it on my phone? It was about that,
yeah.
It was under 20 minutes.
Yeah, and I remember you sent it to me and I put it up on my Instagram stories because I was like, that is insane. Because I knew that anybody that like works out or has ever done any running, I would see that. I knew that they would be like, what? Like,
I mean, that was on a treadmill, but...
Yeah, but even so, dude. Like, who else do you know that can do that on a treadmill?
Nobody.
Yeah, exactly.
Not in the gyms I go to.
Yeah, mate. No,
I'm not blowing my own trumpet. But
no, but that's the thing. Like, as I'm saying, because Ruta, who is like a legit, who's a legit world champion.
Yeah.
Like, she's, as I said, she's a world champion. She's a world champion bench presser, and she's like a high level. Like, she literally travels around the world and does like top level CrossFit competitions all around the world.
Wow.
And she replies to the story and she was like, "Oh my god, I can't believe like that time."
Yeah.
I was like, that's coming from someone like Ruta, who's a legit world champion.
Yeah.
Yeah, shout out to Ria. She's absolutely sound.
Fantastic.
But crazy, man. As I said, for you to be like training at that high level, what do you sort of because you got into athletics when you were quite young, didn't you?
From the age of 4, to be honest with you.
Really?
It was almost like I was born running. It's bizarre. I mean, I obviously got genetics from grandma.
Yeah.
Scandinavian, and I was lucky.
Yeah.
And all the cine films, I've got 8mm films of me before I could sort of talk, and I was just running everywhere.
Yeah.
When I went to primary school, Cannington Primary School, you kind of realise that you're faster than everyone else.
Yeah, sure.
And then you start competing in the county level, and then they push you on from there. And I was lucky enough to progress at Taunton School, and then you're sort of into county, then up to the nationals.
Yeah.
Up to Crystal Palace and places like that.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, because I remember you saying that you did athletics in Crystal Palace. So was it always like running, or did you do other stuff?
It's track and field.
Track and field.
Yeah, so it's different endeavours. Basically, it was 1, 2, 4. I couldn't do 8 for some reason.
Right.
15.
I think it's because I can see why you'd be really good at. Well, I can see why you'd be really good at 1, 2, and 4 because, especially something like 4, because you are like a very interesting mix. Like you are a powerful guy, and I said you're like excellent at things like dips and chin ups and stuff like that, aren't you?
Yeah.
And anything in terms of core strength, like windscreen wipers and stuff like that. Like mad core strength, but obviously also probably the craziest thing about you is probably, I would say, for me, is it's probably your cardio.
Yeah, all engine, isn't it?
Yeah. But you're a great jack of all trades, but that's the one that's like, if you had it like almost like a graph and there were bars, they'd all be pretty even. But then your cardio, I reckon, would be like your cardio and speed would be like
the ones that would be power.
Yeah. So maybe it's like, I don't know, because you have done like a lot of, because you do see when people tend to be more explosive. Maybe the one area they might, not be so good at is something when you get say like 800 meters, stuff like that. It's a bit, it's different, isn't it? It's different type of training. Like you look at someone like Mo Farah, who's obviously like, gold medal, like marathon runner and long distance runner. Like they're very, very small, skinny like guys, and you're very, very light and very extremely shredded, but you are still muscular.
Yeah, I mean, weighing in at 72 kilos, 5'11".
Yeah.
At my age, that's not bad.
That's super light for a guy your height and everything. Yeah.
I mean, you talk about 800 meters. I mean, that's virtually 2 laps. That's 2 laps almost flat out.
Yeah.
Whereas the 400 meter is a staggered start. So if you're lucky to get lane 1, you can see what all the opposition's doing.
Yeah.
And you can save that. You'll say at 95% for 350 meters. And the last 50 meters is when it's all out. And then the 1500 meters, again, that's 3 3/4 laps. So the secret with the only way I'd win those races is to stay, say, second or third, come off the last bend, last 120, bang,
accelerate.
Yeah, and that's it.
So,
Smoke them.
what was your favourite race to do, like, in terms of distance?
Do you know, I didn't have a favourite.
No?
I just enjoyed them all, and it was just the heat of the moment. And
I'd be all 100 metre and 200 metres deep.
Yeah. I mean, 100 metres is all about the start, isn't it?
Yeah.
You get a bad start and it's game over.
Yeah.
It really is. So you've got to practice your starts. 200 metres is a little bit more forgiving.
Yeah.
But I used to enjoy high jump. Again, long jump I loved. High jump I loved. Couldn't do triple jump. I couldn't do things like... I was okay at javelin and shot put. Not so good at hammer and discus. And it was a great part of my life. I was competing until I was in my mid-20s.
Yeah.
And
I didn't know you competed that late.
Yeah, because when I left school, I joined the county club, which then was based at Scat.
Right.
And I was still competing, but you come to the end of the road, don't you?
Yeah, sure.
You realise that's it for you.
Yeah. Oh, so that was literally why you just thought, because around that time, I suppose as well. When you were about 25? When did you have your first kid?
Early 20s.
Yeah, I was going to say. So by that point, you already had a kid.
Yeah.
So you're working full time.
Yeah.
There's only so many hours in the day.
Yeah.
So you just basically made the decision to train recreationally.
Yeah, the same training. I was lucky enough to be trained by some super trainers.
Yeah.
And I've kept the same training going up until now.
Yeah.
But obviously I'm not competing. But saying that, I did do CrossFit for a couple of years, and okay, it's a mixed feelings for me because slinging super heavy weights above your head.
I have mixed feelings about it as well.
Yeah, it's the only time I've ever been injured in my entire
Dude, that's what
career.
I was going to say. The thing is, it's I respect the training, I respect how hard it is, but I mean, you look at injury rates when people do CrossFit.
Okay, that wasn't for me. I was interested, but they had one event, and it was called a Murph.
Right.
And you had a mile run outside to buy in. Right. So you had to do a mile within a certain time. Then if you can compete that in a certain time, that was your buy-in. Then you came in and you did 100 pull-ups,
right,
200 press-ups, and 300 air squats, and back out for another mile.
Yeah,
that's tailor-made for me.
Yeah, that's tailor-made
and again, I had probably 15, 20 years on it, the next man.
Yeah.
And I came in 4 minutes ahead of the trainer.
Yeah. Anything like that.
Yeah.
You no one can beat you.
No.
I would be confident that literally you would have to find some rare specimen, some African guy somewhere that fights lions every day and runs 30 miles a day just to get a bucket of water.
Right.
You'd have to find someone like that.
But you know yourself as a trainer, a lot of it is mindset and it's knowing how to enter that competition, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, if you go flat out that first mile, I mean, I came in, I just scraped through on that first time, but I knew I had plenty left in the tank.
Pacing yourself.
Yeah, and they were going, with the pull-up, stopping, resting, gassing. I just pace yourself, and you got to approach these endeavours intelligently, and that's the secret.
For sure, man. Yeah, I think it's that mixture of wisdom and intelligence for your training, but also, let's face it, you've tailor-made your body literally over the course of multiple decades to be good, specifically at things like that as well.
Yeah.
And that's not something that you can do overnight, or even in a year, or maybe not even in 5 years. That's as I said, that's decades literally of you tailor-making your body to excel in those sort of endeavours.
You're right, and unfortunately, I'm sorry if I offend people, but we live in a world of snowflakes now.
Yeah, you're
but
right.
When I was training, there was no second place. If I came second whilst training, they tell me at school.
Yeah.
They would tell me to run around. We had the uppers and lowers, these athletic tracks, and I was told to run around those fields for the rest of the day and think about whether athletics is for me.
Really?
And why am I wasting...
Was that a competition? If you'd come back from the competition?
Well, not so much competition, into school training.
Literally just in school?
Yeah. And they say, you're wasting our money and your time. Have a think about whether you want to play croquet, lawn darts, or get back on the track. And that's how strict it was.
Yeah, but dude, that's how you forge steel though, isn't it?
And the great man Sean Connery said, losers say I tried my best.
Yeah,
and the winner goes home and has a night with the prom queen. And it's no true words. That comes from the true man himself. And he was a proper athlete, wasn't he?
Yeah, no, he was, wasn't he? He said he was in some Mr. Universe competitions back in the days.
And a bare knuckle fighter.
Was he a bare knuckle fighter?
He was a bare knuckle fighter.
Very interesting guy, Sean Connery.
Very, very, very underrated.
Ramirez in Highlander.
Yeah, and there's no true words. But I mean, you can't train people like that these days because it's bullying, isn't it?
But it's not. No, I don't think that. I think though. I mean, it's funny, isn't it? what was it? I heard. I can't remember who was the person that coined this phrase, but I remember the term. I heard the term about a year or two ago, and it was going on about. They literally worded it as the continued pussification of the West.
Yeah,
and that might be like a funny phrase, but it is true.
Yeah.
What you see now is, and the thing is, like I'm sensitive to people, like, and it's easy to say that, but you know, I think that there are people out there that could confirm that I am. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm not like I am like an empathic guy naturally. Like I feel for people. If someone's going through a hard time, I naturally want to help them. If somebody I care about is going through a hard time, I naturally want to help them, and I will go out of my way to try and help them. You know, whether it be physically, mentally, you know, even if it's not what's best for me. But that said, you know, one thing that concerns me is, you know, there's a lot to be. It's almost like that makes me think of that phrase. You know, like, what do you want to do? Do you want to teach a man to fish, or do you want to catch a fish for somebody? Like, yeah, it might be frustrating for the person then and there if you teach someone how to fish, because it's a long, harder process. They might be at the time like, oh, why can't you just catch a fish for me? But in the long run, what you're doing is setting that person up to be strong and self-sufficient.
Yes.
So if you think about it almost like that analogy,
yes,
like you need to be like that almost with toughness, like
yes.
in life, because unfortunately life is hard and we all go through heartache. You know, there's always a chance. Let's face it, it doesn't happen very often, but that said, it happens every day all across the country. There's always that chance that you might walk down the wrong alley and get filled in by somebody. You know, you never know what's going to happen in life. You never know what's going to happen. You might get in a savage car crash. You know, your mum might get mugged. You might get beaten up. Your missus might find out she's, you know, sleeping with your mate. And these are things, you might lose your job. And these are things that can be really devastating. And if you're not tough, if you're not forged in iron, you know, then what's going to happen? You're going to crumble and you're going to wither. And then not only, you know, you don't have the toughness and the resolve then to recover from that yourself. So you're not doing yourself any favors. You know, you're not doing your family any favors and the people around you, because you're just a wreck. You know, so you're no use to yourself. You're not used to anybody. And then what are you going to be, like a drain on the system for the rest of your life? Because you can't, you know, let's face it, you go back to that old fashioned way of things that would have been done, especially back, you know, like hundreds and hundreds of years ago. You would say, like, have a settlement. Everyone would have their role and everyone would have to pitch in. And if one person couldn't do their job, then the whole settlement would suffer. And obviously we've got away from that a little bit, but it's still essentially true. You know, and when you get to the point where you've just got like too many weak people that can no longer do anything, well, then society's going to suffer, isn't it? Yeah. And what you see is, you do see some brutal countries, and obviously I don't want to live in a brutal country, but you see some like brutal regimes in some countries, like, you know, where people are living in fear and they have no choice but to do savage manual labor, and they're getting paid like pittance to do like brutal stuff. And obviously that's not good. But meanwhile, we're, as you said, in America, the UK, you know, other countries in sort of Europe and stuff, we're getting more and more and more like snowflakes. Well, you know, we're at this turning point right now. You see it like with the war with Russia and Ukraine. Like, we grew up in a society where it's okay because the Yanks and the UK and Europe and, you know, the Aussies, blah, 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 all those allies, the West, are the top dogs. So we don't have to live in fear. But what happens when China gets too strong? What happens when Russia gets too strong? What happens when there are with opposing ideologies that don't really like the way that we do things here? You know, if they become too strong and then say it actually got to the point, God forbid, like, hopefully this never happened, but say there was like an invasion or something, what would we do? Well, you've got all these like snowflakes going on about how they're offended, or, oh, you can't say that to me because you hurt my feelings, and that. Yeah. And then you've just got these savages running around just destroying everyone who like grew up in hardship, and they are like saw family members die when they're young, and all they know is like working 18-hour days, you know, and stuff like that. You know, it's like, what are we gonna do? You know?
Yeah, it's like the relationship that you have with pain, and you know, but to grow your muscles or to be fit, you need to become comfortable with being in states of pain sometimes, when you're actually, or doing something hard, you know, doing something that maybe your body is saying to you, like, stop now, please. Yeah. But, you know, getting that resolve in your mind. But I think a lot of people now, myself included, because I've never had a great relationship with training. It's always something that I've wanted to get into, but, you know, my resolve is a bit too weak for it. Yeah. Like, to, you know, to it's like you become so submersed in the comfortable, you know.
Because it's so easy to,
yeah,
isn't it?
but that's not right, you know.
No.
But now it seems like society is saying it's okay to just be comfortable, like, or it's okay to like argue everything because it's hurting your feelings and stuff. But that's, like you say, that's not going to make you stronger, and that's not going to give you a resolve, so you can actually do something like positive with your life, you know.
Have you ever heard of a guy called George Hackenschmidt, Dom?
No.
He was a guy that lived in sort of like late 1800s, early 1900s, and he wrote this book called The Way to Live. I think it was called The Way to Live. And anyway, he was...
Oh, is that the guy we were talking about?
He was a freak athlete in the day, bearing in mind that like steroids weren't even a thing until after World War II. It was like the Nazis that invented them. But so this was like, you know, he was a clean athlete. You can see black and white pictures of him nowadays. And he's in immense shape. For those days, bear in mind, they didn't even have sports supplements back then. I think they did have some really rudimentary old sports supplements. I think they used to take things like beef liver. That was like what they used to take for like sports supplements back then. It was like things like beef liver capsules and stuff like that, which obviously is very good for you.
Yeah.
But you know, very rudimentary. Obviously, didn't have protein powders. Didn't really take vitamins or anything. I think they used to be quite big on taking iron, but I think that was about it. They would take like iron and beef liver capsules. So you know. There wasn't obviously that much science about nutrition back then, so he was all trial and error. Basically, he used to try and eat a well-rounded diet. He used to eat lots of vegetables and fruit, but then also animal proteins. He was in insane shape, and a lot of movements that people do in the gym nowadays, he invented a lot of them.
Wow.
Yeah, you've obviously heard of the hack squat.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
That's cool. That's after George
Wow.
Hackenschmidt. Yeah.
Wow.
He invented the hack squat.
Yeah.
So back in the day, he used to do it, and before the machines were invented, he used to have a barbell behind him. And imagine doing sort of like a deadlift, but the barbell's behind your legs.
Yeah.
So it turns it more almost like into a squat, but the way it hits your legs is like way more quad.
Yeah.
He had massive legs, didn't he? Yeah. Like,
And this is back in the day. Yeah, so this is, you know, you
incredible.
look at him nowadays and you think, oh, that guy's probably in gear. But so this is like before gear was invented.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I really like about his book, and this is I guess, if for anybody that maybe, you know, is confused about exactly what my ideology is or something, if anyone can get their hands on the book The Way to Live, you can get copies. I've seen there like cheap copies on Amazon for like £7 or something. Buy that and have a read of that, because what he goes in there, it's almost, as I said, it's as the book's titled, it's called The Way to Live. It's not just necessarily about training. It is a training manual, but he goes into the mentality of it as well and everything. And what about it is, it's about being happy, healthy, strong, the importance of strength, and how all of these things add up to being like a gentleman, and about how through turmoil and through hard work, it will make you like a better man and a decent man and a helpful member to your family, to your kids, to your mother, to your partner, to your society that you live in, and that is being a gentleman. And you see all these pictures of him, and he's always very smartly dressed, and that's what I believe in. That to me, that is like a quintessential, like, you can see why, why the West did win all these, you know, although obviously there were some pretty brutal wars, and obviously some of the wars, you know, like World War I and II, at least, you know, started literally in the West, but that's not really my point. You can see why the West did sort of rise to prominence in a way with guys like that, because they were absolutely made of iron, and they were savages. Like he was like one of the best wrestlers in the world, but I'm talking like proper wrestling, you know, not like WWE, you know, like proper wrestling.
Yeah.
You know, one of the best strongmen in the world, one of the best trainers in the world, you know, just an absolute savage of a man, but he was a complete gentleman, and he was an academic, and he was a thinker. So he would have been a caring man and a good man, but it's not the sort of guy you'd want to mess with. You know, if some savage came from, you know, the far sides of whatever, you know, cave somewhere, and came and tried to rough him up, then they would have got stretched.
Game over.
Yeah, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's, I think, that people like that are getting rarer and rarer in society nowadays.
You're right.
You see a couple of gems, but let's face it, they're diamonds in the rough.
Absolutely.
Like, how many people do you think? Like 1 in 1,000, something like that, maybe?
I can remember the last time I met someone in a gym, and I thought, you know what, hats off, wow.
Yeah.
I like the way you look, I like the way you train.
Yeah.
And I'm very interested.
You respected him as a man to man.
I wanted to learn more. I wanted to get to know this guy, talk to him. I can't remember the last time that was.
Yeah, really?
No.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm just trying to think. So you did athletics as well. So, yeah, when up until you were 25. Because didn't you do some training... Well, in terms of, because you've always been like a real big fan of boxing and stuff, haven't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what about different? Because I know you've done some Krav Maga.
Yeah.
And you've been really into boxing for a while.
Yeah.
Didn't you do some like kickboxing and stuff when you were a bit younger as
Yeah,
well?
I did some kickboxing, boxed at school for a little while. but I had to make my choice between athletics and boxing.
Yeah, and you just loved the training.
Yeah,
you loved more like pure training.
Yeah,
Yeah. And let's face it as well. I think also for like a smart guy as well and stuff like that. You have to be a bit more cerebral in terms of like, do you want to be getting smacked in the head all the time?
Yeah.
Because let's face it, a lot of the greatest fighters, it was almost like that or nothing for them.
Yeah.
Like, they're these absolute savages, but you hear stories of them. You see it with Roberto Duran, Mike Tyson, so many other guys. And like, they grew up rough, like really rough on the streets, often didn't know who their fathers were and stuff like that, grew up in communities of like drugs and nasty environments.
Channeled it into something positive for
It's
them,
almost like if they weren't going to do that, then they'd probably just be like drug dealers or something.
In prison.
Yeah. They'd be in prison. Yeah.
They had two paths, didn't they?
Yeah.
Left or right.
Whereas obviously that's not the case for you. So I think that's. I mean, I saw that with with one of my sort of favorite MMA fighters, Quentin Rampage Jackson. He said that. I think I watched an interview with him, and he was saying, do your kids want to get into MMA or do you want them to? And he was like, hell no. He was like, my kids can grow up in silk sheets. He said, I couldn't. He said I had to do this. He grew up like rough in Tennessee and like some really sort of rough areas in Tennessee. I think it was Tennessee. Where it was like. Yeah, just fighting every day, and like some of the houses on his street didn't have front doors, and like raccoons were running in the kitchen and nicking your feet. So. But yeah.
But if you go back to training quickly, many years ago, I listened to a talking book called it was either Gold or Going for Gold, something like that, and it's about this guy who was a sort of road cyclist, and he belonged to this club, and he was the head of his game, and he used to compete and he did really well, and he was lucky enough to have a training camp with the Olympic athletes. And basically they'd had 6 months off of doing nothing, not even looked at a bicycle. And he'd been training all year round, 24/7 on his diet, and he turned up day one of their training day, and he was secretly sort of smirking, thinking, let's see what it's all about. It's their first day, this is going to be tough for them. And they absolutely dusted him.
Really?
Dusted him. And he called them genetic freaks. And I think...
And they hadn't been training for 6 months.
6 months.
Well,
day one.
Crazy.
And I think if you either want it or you need it, if you train, if you want something or you need it, that big... And also, my Krav Maga instructor said, practice makes permanent. And I think when it comes to any physical endeavour, any training, you got to want it. You see these guys...
Because it is hard.
It is. And Drew, look, I don't think I'm better than anybody, but I see these guys turn up at the gym and you see them looking around. They got no plan in their mind. I mean, I know this time next week, I know what I'm training. I know what I'm eating. I know what I'm training. Okay, that could be a bit OTT, but
that's why you're so good.
That's what,
and they walk in that gym and they're with their mates and they're looking at their iPhones, they're looking out the window and they see a machine that's free and they go on it and they're training. There's no structure. They're doing a little bit of biceps, then they're doing shoulders, then they're doing back, then they're
biceps
doing this.
every day.
Yeah, then they're texting again, taking selfies.
Yeah.
And they look no different in 10 years. Then they're watching all this bamboozling themselves with watching rubbish on YouTube, who people are clearly on gear, and they think, well, if I do it this way, I'm going to end up looking like that.
That's the big problem.
Then this is something I really fall out with. Instructors, okay, they're qualified, but what they've done, they've
read out a manual.
Yeah, and they've digested that manual.
Rather
and
than
I say
living it.
Dotted the I's and crossed the T's.
And I say this to anyone. You take advice from whom you want, but my advice is look that person up and down.
Yeah.
Do they know what they're talking about?
And not just look up and down, like, what can they do?
Yeah.
Because you might randomly, sometimes, you do see some people that might even not look the part, but they actually are really good athletes. We both have obviously known people like that.
Yeah. But do they know what they're talking about? Yeah. Is it read out of a manual? Is it something off YouTube? And do they look the business?
Yeah.
And that's the only advice I would give to anybody.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you've got to walk the walk as well as talk the talk.
Completely.
And I've said that to I've said that to both Drew and Nathaniel before, especially like to Nathaniel, who's the other lad we do the show with. He's only young, I think 19 years old. But he sort of like he does go to the gym now, and obviously I've tried to give him a lot of sort of like little tips and hints and stuff like that about what to do. But I've said to both the guys, I said like the fact of the matter is most PTs aren't good. No, they're not. No. What they are good at. The one thing I will say that they can be beneficial for is literally if you've never ever been in a gym in your life, then what they might be good at is literally saying like a chest press works your chest. a leg press works. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Or a leg press works your legs.
Yes.
This is how you get in it.
Yes.
Select the weight like that.
Yep.
They're literally like the very much most basic stuff. If you've literally never set foot in a gym in your life, this is how the treadmill works. But other than that, not like a lot of them, no, if
they want progression.
Then the majority of PTs aren't good. And I've even heard that people that have trained with me in the past, including my Mrs. Emily, she said that, when she first got into training, she was living in Bristol at the time. And she said she went to one of the big gyms in Bristol and got a PT because obviously, and let's face it, it's the same as anything. It's like, if you want your car fixed, you take it to a mechanic. You assume the mechanic knows what he's doing. It's like anything in life, isn't it, right? She goes to the gym, gets into training for the first time, gets a PT, thinks, I'm gonna be sorted then. And he said that they basically used to walk around the gym together. He said he always used to eat Mars bars. All right, apparently he was always eating Mars bars, always acted like he really wasn't interested. He said he used to get her to do basically like squats, like the majority of the time. He basically was just get her to do like squats. Wouldn't give her that good feedback. He said a lot of the stuff that he told her how to do later on, like people like myself and other people actually said that wasn't the right way to do things and try it like this instead, blah, 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 blah. And then when she actually did do that, that's when she actually started getting good. And he said that she basically used to stand behind her and she'd see him in the mirror and she'd see him behind her in the mirror, just staring at her ass.
That's disgusting.
Just eating Mars
What an
bars.
idiot.
And she said, and she'd pay him to do that. And she said she didn't get anything out of it. And then, it would get session up. And then obviously see you next week. And he didn't give a toss. He wasn't even really. She wasn't invested. It was like when she trained with me, I made sure anything I could do. Yeah. Anything I could think of, anything I could do. And I'm thinking and the best way to just verbalize. What's the best way to word this? Because if you're really into training, suddenly just spewing out all of this information might not be the most helpful thing to someone. So you need to think, right, how am I going to word this? How do I put this in layman's terms? How do I put this in a way that person's going to go, okay, I know exactly what you mean. Exactly. And then exactly actually be able to do it.
Talk their language. Yeah. To explain to them, teach them a level. Yeah.
And then all you can do, sorry, man, just to finish if you go. And then at the end of the day, right, if you can do that, and then if the person is willing to be actually put in the consistency, right, then it's a matter of, okay, if I don't know what I'm talking about, right, and you're actually training regularly, like I say, and you're not making any improvement, then I don't know what I'm talking about. But if you are and you do start improving all the time, then I obviously do. And it's just getting to that, if you're confident and you know that you are not trying to just milk someone for money or whatever, and you're actually just trying to help someone, if they are putting in that work and they will improve, well then that's it. The proof's in the pudding, isn't it?
Completely.
But yeah, sorry, man. Go on.
Well, I was just saying, I'm back training with someone I trained with many years ago, and she won't mind me saying this. I mean, this is a former athlete who's in her 50s now.
Is that the lady with curly hair?
No. Look, when we went to Blackbrook.
Yeah.
I was trained with her there.
Right. Yeah.
And I
really liked when I went to Blackbrook.
Yeah. It was great, wasn't it?
I like that training.
They don't do that anymore.
Yeah, that's a shame.
Health and safety. Anyway, she's in her 50s, had 2 children.
Right.
So that's the normal excuses that people come out with, isn't it?
Yeah.
And all I've done is so she's got a good engine, good basics. All I've done is fine-tune that, point her in the direction she wanted to go. And she's now doing pull-ups, dips, press-ups.
Wow.
Got a 6-pack.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And she's head and shoulders above girls 30 years younger her in that gym.
And she's happy, healthy, loving it?
Loving it. She's on a good diet. And when we started doing some sprinting on the treadmill, her maximum was about 11. Now she's up to 18.
Oh, what, 11K?
Yeah.
Right, so she could run 11K before her gas tank ran out.
Yeah. But now she can sprint at 18. And that's just fine tuning, just pointing in the right direction.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that in terms of speed or distance?
Speed.
Right, okay.
Sprinting.
So her maximum speed was 11K.
Yes.
And now it's gone up to 18.
Yes.
That is insanely quick.
Yeah. And she looks amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she says she feels better, she's eating better. I can see, and she says that in the changing rooms, females are coming up to her and saying, wow, how do you do this? What's your secret? And, and she hasn't got time to explain it to them.
What would you say, obviously you've had a long training career. I said, like, all my life I remember you training and like going to the gym with you and stuff. Well, in terms of like the evolution of your training, how would you say it's changed over the years, and how have you had to modify your training, say from when you were, I don't know, 18 to my age to the age you're at now?
Okay, I mean, I was your typical, in my early 20s, I suppose when I left school, I was that typical, there is no pain, train for the pain, you know, and I was a little bit foolish. Not that I had any injuries, but I had a couple of niggles. But instead of thinking, ooh, you know, I better ease off this week. But when you're young, it's like racing motocross. You fall off, dust yourself down, and off you go again. That's
something we'll get into in a little bit. Yeah. Motorbikes and motocross and that. But yeah, that's...
All right. So, but now I'm in my 50s. If I describe myself as a Jaguar XJS, supercar of the 70s.
Right.
So it was the car that preceded the E-Type. So back then it would do 150, 5.3 V12, do 150, 0 to 60 in about 6 seconds. I can still do 150.
Yeah.
I can still do 0 to 60 in 6 seconds, but if the engine starts to rattle, just ease off the pedal a little bit.
Right, okay.
So I'm very aware, I'm very tuned into my body now. And if I get a slight niggle in any of my joints, I've always, and this is what I preach to everybody, I've always protected my knees and protected my back. Because if you do your knees or your back, you're done.
Yeah.
You know, there's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
I've always protected both. And if I get a slight niggle in my elbows or with pull-ups, then all I do is ease off the gas pedal.
Right.
And then next week I'm back on it.
So you keep training, but just well within failure.
Yes.
Just greasing the groove.
Yes.
You know, some active recovery.
Yep.
And you're training everything else, but just making sure that you're avoiding anything that's bothering that little niggle.
Absolutely.
Until you're better again, and then you can just start ramping up a little bit again.
And if I like CrossFit, for instance, I thought I'd give it a go. It wasn't for me.
No.
Because it wasn't very often we did that.
The thing is, it's chasing the dragon, isn't it, with CrossFit?
Well, they say
it's always more.
Well, they say CrossFit
more
community,
weight.
but let me tell you this: I didn't see any community. When you start, you know, winning, that they do want to talk to you. They extradite you.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, if I got smoked, if I was in my 20s, coming up 30, and I got smoked by someone who was say 50, I'd be like, whoa, you know, I'd be shaking that person by the hand.
Saying,
what a pleasure.
Yeah, man.
Not ignoring you and not speaking to you. And
being ignorant.
So that was it for me. We were done.
Yeah, dude. You know, that's just bad attitude, isn't it?
But I suppose when I was competing, you fuel the machine, don't you? Like the flux capacitor, you fuel the machine. But I'm far more aware of sort of, you know, I got a 6-pack. I love having a 6-pack at my age. You know, I'm proud of it.
How many 50 plus?
Well, not many. I've not seen any natural ones for a little while. But
dude, I haven't had a 6-pack since I was 18.
I mean, you got to understand, being lean is one thing and shredded. Having a 6-pack, that's something else.
Yeah.
And that's the choice. And again, I don't mean to diss anybody, but when I'm on the treadmill, I look at the guys that come in, and I think, what is your goal? You know, I see them skinny legs, pot bellies, pumping them, doing the biceps. All they do is chest and biceps, and they got, you know, pot belly, skinny little legs. And I think, what do you see when you take your top off?
It's not like
mirror?
a well-rounded goal.
No,
that's what I say.
And what is your goal? What direction are you going in?
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm better than you,
dude. To be honest, probably most of them, it's probably just trying to pull chicks in
the palace.
Yeah, in palace.
With a tight t-shirt.
Yeah. That's
and
probably
right.
what it is. That's probably what it is.
But I often wonder what goes through their mind.
But
what are they seeing?
Going back to what you were saying earlier about you need to want it. Like, that's not wanting it.
No.
Or it might be on a short term. You're wanting it in terms of so that you might be able to pull chicks better in a nightclub when they're already, you know, half baked.
Yeah.
But you know, that doesn't come from a deep place, does it? You know, like, as I said, you've got to want to do it for you, and it's got to be this. You got to think about. It's like when people say, oh, "I'm going on a diet." You know, it's like it has to be a lifestyle. Because it's not something that you're in it. Okay, I'm going to do this for 2 months, and then I'm going to do it. Well, what's going to happen at the end of that 2 months?
Exactly.
You're going to go exactly back to what you were
and
before.
Worse.
If you want to make a change, and you want to make it a part of your lifestyle, well, then you're in it. You know, you're in it for the long haul.
Yeah.
You know, you're in it or you're not.
Yeah.
And also what you were saying about, like, you know, people doing chest and biceps and that. Yeah, one of the main things I say to everyone is, like, you know, look, you don't have to be in it into training as much as me and you are, but, you know, all you need to be in good shape and to be healthy is if you did 3 full body workouts a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and had a good diet, and if you did a hard full body workout just Monday, Wednesday, Friday, hour each session or hour and a half. How many? You know, what's that?
That's going to be my goal. That's
what's that? That's between 3 and 4.5 hours.
Yes.
A week.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's nothing.
You think of it like that. Like that's like watching like Return of the King extended edition. Do you know?
Yeah.
Can I ask as well, Dom?
course.
You know what you were saying a bit earlier in the conversation about when you were training when you were younger and you trained with some really good people and that. Like, what kind of did that look like? What were some of those concepts and some of the things that you learned early that has kind of stuck with you as like, this is a really good way to train? You know, for someone who doesn't know much about like training and stuff.
Again, for me, call me old-fashioned, old school. I like to look at a person. I like to think of that person. Wow, you know, that person's got something. They look the business. I want some of that.
You want someone to look the part.
Yeah, and I've been lucky enough to meet, I say, a handful of people who fit that bill. I was lucky enough. I mean, your dad,
When he was young.
Wow.
Yeah, when he was
what an
young.
athlete, you know, 32-inch waist.
As I said, yeah,
Yeah.
people that have only known my old man for, say, the last 20 years don't understand, but I say if you sort of grew up in my family,
Yeah.
like you did, you know, well, obviously you are family to me.
I mean,
But- But
sorry.
he was a great athlete, wasn't
Yeah,
he? And
he
a
was.
great jack of all trades athlete as
Very
well. 'Cause,
all-round package.
You know, he'd do, 80-minute rugby matches every single week where, 1 minute you're sprinting, the next minute you're jogging, the next minute you're picking up a guy who might be 4 or 5 stone heavier than you, slamming him, grabbing the ball, and let's face it as well, when you're doing something like rugby, there's nothing like linear about the stress you're putting in your body, because 1 minute you'll be running in a straight line, and then you're going to have to try and sidestep somebody,
Yeah.
and then you're going to get tackled from a dodgy angle. You might have to tackle somebody else from a dodgy angle, and then the moment you get slammed on your back or something, there's no take 5-minute breather. No, you have to get up and you have to go, and he'd do that. He's cycling miles and miles all the time, like every single week. He'd go out for runs every single day. He'd be going to the gym, lifting weights, doing press-ups all the time.
Yeah.
Arm wrestling with his friend Andy Lauder, who's a giant.
Yeah.
And he
Yeah.
really strong guy,
Yeah.
like giant. Just as I said, lifestyle.
It is.
The lifestyle of a machine.
It is. And Drew, it's just under 5 people, I'd say, have given me some real sound advice about training. Give me some direction about training, how to train, what to eat. And it stuck me for life. And I've been lucky enough to share that with 1 or 2 people. It's not something I share with everybody, because it's been very special to me, and it's grounded me. But I mean, talk about Cal's dad, for instance. I mean, when I was probably between 14 and 16, I could beat most of his friends at arm wrestling, even back then. But beating,
And these are rugby players. They're not like little guys off the street.
Yeah, I mean, I was. They were at their best. I was coming up to my best, but
Well, you're still you're at that stage where you're kind of a boy, kind
Yeah.
of a young man,
Yeah.
but you're not anywhere. You're not in your prime.
no. So beating most of Paul's friends at arm wrestling was one thing, but beating Paul, that's something else. that I couldn't. It's a different world. Him and Andy Lauder, it was,
He is an exceptionally good arm wrestler.
yeah.
I'll always say my old man's better arm wrestler than me.
Yeah.
But I'm stronger than him, but he's just a very good arm wrestler. Well, that my granddad used to take him around the pub.
Yeah.
And then used to, you'd go up to the biggest, gnarliest, trucker or factory worker
yeah.
that you'd find in the Quantock Gateway, as it was
Bit
back then.
hustling.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he'd say, I bet 20 quid, and this was back in the day. This was back in the early 70s. I bet you that my 14-year-old son can beat you in an arm wrestle. And they'd look him up and down, rubbish, egos in the pub. Some guy that's, 6 pints down.
Yeah.
And obviously my dad would smoke him. And you just do that. My granddad's always had that hustler's mentality, that gambling mentality.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't
so
spend a
funny.
penny in the pub. It would all just be money
Yeah.
that they'd earn from beating people in arm wrestling.
But I think, Drew, if you're thinking about training, the engine first. Get your engine, get your core. Everything comes from the core. If you ever hear interviews by Jessica Ennis-Hill, it's all about the core, but it's what people leave out, unfortunately, when they train. Like Cal said,
Because it's like your trunk, isn't it?
everything comes from there. You talk to any competitive athlete, Krav Maga instructors, everything comes from there. Like Cole Frotch, for instance.
He's your favourite boxer, isn't he?
He is,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
the simple reason being, he's possibly the most untechnical boxer I've ever known. But he had an engine, and he got put on the canvas. He fought someone called Jermaine Taylor, who at his time,
Great boxer.
And he was put on the canvas for the first time in his career in the 3rd round, and he lost every round, Frotch, and he came back the last 30 seconds of the 12th round and knocked him through the ropes, and that's just engine.
Yeah, he just had supreme cardio, and also he could punch.
Yeah, and he had a granite chin.
Yeah.
But it wasn't his boxing; it's just his engine. So get your engine up to speed.
I always think, and I know that a lot of martial artists will disagree with this, and a lot of even a lot of probably champion fighters might not agree with this. But I think that you can literally see it proven through, boxing, different martial arts, MMA, stuff like that. I think that if you have two guys that are in their prime, the one that is better athletically, right, is more likely to beat the guy that might even be better than him technically. And I know a lot of people will go, that's not true, or not like that. And I think, to be fair, I think it depends maybe on the style of fighting, but I think that you can see examples of that being the case. I think at the end of the day, it's like you look at the animal kingdom, because there is no martial arts or technique in the animal kingdom. The alpha is the biggest, strongest, fastest one, right? And that's the way it is. If you can go longer, if you can hit harder, and if you can take the blows better, then you're going to be the alpha. And that's just the way it is.
And you and I know a couple of local boxers that look fantastic on a bag, don't they?
Yeah.
But when they get chinned in the street, it's lights out, isn't it?
Yeah, and I've seen good boxing like trainers and guys that have got good boxing records, and I've literally witnessed them have street fights, and I've seen them land like 12 blows clean on a guy. They naturally, for some reason, just naturally weren't born with that raw power, because power is something you're sort of born with. You can increase it, obviously, but mostly it's something you're sort of born with, isn't it? And the blows just didn't really do anything to the guy, and the guy just floored him.
Yeah.
Just floored him. Just put him right on his ass. Yeah. Just right on his ass.
Yeah.
Because he landed all these like flashy shots, like flush, but it just didn't really do anything to the guy. And at the end of the day, there's no point scoring on the street. You're not going to win a decision, because the guy that with the good record that I'm thinking of, all of his wins were by decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He
trained himself to beat someone on points.
Yeah.
So that doesn't really help you out. Like, you need to know how to be a savage.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, man. Yeah, dude. So I know that one thing that Drew wanted to talk to you about loads, was really excited, was about like motorbikes.
Yeah.
So like I say, I don't know anything I've ever asked you, man, like in the properly. But when did you actually because you obviously did motocross, you were into dirt biking.
Yeah.
So when did you first get into that? Like, what made you get into that? When did you first get your bike? How did you see it, etc.?
Well, I think it started as a kid. I always had sort of rally grifters, things like that, which were out before BMXs. So it's always some people had racers, some people had dirt bikes. So it was always in the dirt, and I would ride it in the dirt. And then I went on a training camp when I was 11, and I was lucky enough to have an all-day session on a motocross bike, and that was it.
Wow!
Yeah,
and you were like, "This
that's
is
it
amazing."
for me.
Yeah.
And I just loved the dirt. I just loved racing in the dirt, and that's how it all started, really. And it progressed from there.
Nice.
Yeah. So like, how old were you? So did you obviously like go to grandma and granddad, as I'd know him. Like, did you go to like your mum and dad and say like, I like this. Like, could I go?
Yeah, basically,
somewhere?
Well, you know what granddad's like. So I had to get summer jobs and earn the money, and then you start by a bike, do it up, sell it, and then progress up for the ranks, then and get something decent, something competitive, and practice. It's all about anything to do with racing is practice. So it's just practice. I was lucky enough in Cannington, as you know, I had fields to practice in, lanes to practice in. And that's all I did. Practice.
So you just take your bike out around the fields, around the lanes?
Absolutely.
Different time back then, wasn't it?
It was.
Kind of do that.
Yeah, you couldn't do it now. And then obviously when I could, I'd go up into forest. I had permission to race in a particular forest that belonged to the Crown Estate. And I used to just go up there and practice.
Whereabouts was that, dude?
It was near the Rally's Cross pub.
All right.
And it's the old incline.
Right.
It's all changed now. But
it's lovely up there, isn't it?
Oh, it's fantastic.
That whole area.
Yeah.
It's so nice.
I can't remember the name of the house at the foot of that. There's a house at the foot of there.
Right.
Sydenham House, but it will come to me. Anyway, they gave me permission to practice it. Back then, people didn't go walking in there. But they've developed a little bit, make it a bit more urban friendly. And I used to go there and just practice all day. It was fantastic. All farmers' fields and things like that.
Yeah. So when did you actually? So how old were you when you were practicing, like doing that?
Well, there I would have been 17.
Right.
Yeah.
And you actually did some. What, you actually did some motocross?
Yeah,
like competitively.
Raced for several years. I guess I raced. I gave up in 2008 because I had a bad crash.
Yeah,
and I think that was nature's way.
Any sort of nasty injuries from that? Or?
Do you know, it was a slow, like you, Drew, a slow speed tumble, practicing, not racing, and I landed on my left shoulder, and I was miles from the van, and the pain was unbelievable. You know when you get pain when you get you know, you get snot coming out your nose, you feel sick,
yeah.
and everything just goes blank. I never felt pain like it.
Really?
Right.
Yeah.
The worst pain you've ever felt?
And you had to push
Ever.
the bike back.
I'd push the bike back miles and miles and miles, and it took 6 months of, well, basically where your collarbone goes into your shoulder, that nearly popped out. And I went to the A&E the next day, and they said that if that had popped out, they said that it would never repair properly.
Right.
Forget sprinting, forget pull-ups, game over. Your arm would only go that high. He said you were that close.
Screw that.
So I made a decision again that training and running is more important to me.
Yeah, man.
And it took 6 months on the assisted pull-up machine. You know where you put your knees?
Yeah.
And that
But the
machine
weight-
saved me.
Really?
6 months of, you know, lowering the weight,
So
lowering the weight.
you basically rehabilitated.
Got
through
back
that.
to where I was again. And it has never troubled me again. But up until that point, I was travelling around the southwest, competing in motocross and enduros as well. You know, 3-hour enduros on a motocross bike.
Sounds amazing.
Oh, it was great.
Sorry, guys. We just have to have a real quick break, but we'll be back in a minute.
You're not in Kansas anymore. You're on Pandora, ladies and
Got
gentlemen.
my Uncle Dom in the studio. Been talking about training, nutrition, life growing up, Sean Connery, all sorts of stuff. But you were just telling us about your motocross, sort of like, you know, your little brief sort of motocross career growing up with motorbikes, how you got into motorbikes. And we just left off talking about your savage injury you had and how you rehabilitated using an assisted pull-up machine. So yeah, I guess we'll just like pick up from there, man.
Okay.
So that's when you decided to basically stop doing motocross.
Stop racing bikes. I made the decision. I'll never give up biking.
Yeah.
You know,
You love it, don't you?
It'll take me.
The two
before
things
give it
I
up.
always think of you, whenever I think about you, I think of motorbikes and training. Those are the two things.
I think biking's in your blood. It's not, some people, I don't think it's something you can sort of pick up. I mean, my grandfather, I never knew him because he died in 59, but he used to race bikes and he raced in the TT.
He did the Iron Man TT, didn't
Yeah,
he?
and then Granddad used to race bikes.
Yeah.
And his brother.
Yeah, he had a nasty accident, didn't he?
He did.
His elbow's like messed up,
Yeah,
innit?
yeah.
Did he get crushed between two lorries in
Yeah, he
Africa?
did, yeah.
That's brutal. Yeah, he was literally went to overtake a lorry or something?
Yeah, and they
And then the lorries obviously didn't see him, and he literally got crushed like that between two lorries, and his elbow's like,
all metal and
it's like
yeah.
where obviously you just have 1 point, like normally he's got almost like
Yeah.
2, isn't he?
He used to say it's bionic when I was younger. And
Yeah, and he can't fully straighten his
no,
arm, is that
no,
right?
he can't lift his arm up. And his brother, who's in his 80s, is still
Nick, yeah.
riding motorcycles now. So it's in your blood. And as soon as I was 16, I wasn't interested in having a car. I just wanted a motorcycle, and it just progressed. And it's like anything, the need for speed, and there's no true words.
Yeah,
Say
man.
you buy a 600 Bandit, that's pretty fast, and you think, yeah, I love that. Then it's all you think about is getting a 1200 Bandit. That's all
You had a
think about.
1200 Bandit, didn't you?
Yeah, I still got it.
You still got it?
Yeah, 1250
That's
Bandit.
that's because you've had that for a while.
Yeah, I bought that brand new in 2008, something like that.
Because you've gone through a lot of bikes, but
Yeah.
that must be. I can tell you must love that one because
It's tricked
because
up.
that's probably the only one I can think of in the last 15 years that
Yeah.
you've had the whole time.
Yeah, really
You've been
tricked up.
through a lot of bikes in that time.
Yeah.
So what was your first sort of street bike?
What, as in really fast bike?
Well, just like, you know, so you finish your motocross and then, you know, I guess you get your license to drive on the street.
Yeah, okay. When I was
Ride on the street,
when I was
sorry.
16, I had a Suzuki TS50 ER,
Right.
and it was SYD 49 whiskey. I can remember it now. Sid, we used to call it Sid, SYD.
Right.
And that and this is typical of me. So 50cc, bought it out at 65. Then I seized the back wheel locked up, and he sees that. And then there used to be a little racing shop at the end of St John Street by the traffic lights,
Right.
and it's called M&M Racing. And I was, do you remember?
Yeah.
And I was
So
walking.
when did that shut?
Oh my gosh, late 80s, early 90s.
Oh, okay.
I think he's a funeral director now or something.
Oh, okay.
But it's opposite the car hire place, right at the end, right in the corner. And I can remember walking from college, because college only had one entrance back then, which was the Parkway entrance. So I can remember walking up to town, and in the window was a TS 100 engine. So straight in, 60 quid, something like that. Bolted that in the bike. Better than the thing. This was built for 30 miles an hour, and it would do like 70 now.
Yeah.
And it just progressed from there.
Nice.
Yeah,
And that's
no,
the whole part of it. It's like the whole doing things yourself and customizing
Yes.
and. You know, it's got
Yeah.
you got to be wanting to get deep in it with
definitely.
that. I'm kind of like it with guitars. Like I'm not
Yeah.
so good with the mechanics, but even when I had my XSR 700, it was like anything that wasn't insanely like technical with the engine. I was like, I put a new exhaust on it and stuff, and like, it's the whole part of the fun, isn't it? Like making it yours. Like
and you want
know.
it to go faster. And I had
Yeah.
some bad crashes when I was younger. I took some silly risks,
Yeah.
and I paid for it.
Yeah.
But luckily unscathed.
Yeah,
but,
luckily, touch wood, man.
It was all part of biking.
Yeah.
Coming off.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've had some nice bikes over the years, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, but again, it's hard to accept, but this is just human nature. The last hyperbike I had, I bought a S1000R single R BMW, and they're stock 165 brake horsepower. And what they do, they restrict it to 100 horsepower, so they run it in.
Right.
So that you do 600 miles, take it back at the dealer, they service it, then they release the Fury. It's then 165, and that thing is wild. And they said, we can send that bike up to a special place at Hinckley, and we can have double R values put in it, so it's 200 brake horsepower. Bear in mind, there's no fairing. You're sitting upright.
Yeah.
Like a parachute on the bike, and you got a quick shifter, so you got no clutch. So as soon as you're out of first, up and down through the box, no clutch, so you can literally pin it and go up for the box. And I can remember going up on Exmoor with that, and I kid you not, and I unleashed it, and I almost blacked out.
Serious? What, just from the G-force?
It was just so fast, and I was trying to sort of, missile lock on the road ahead, and I couldn't really see because the thing was vibrating. I was clinging on.
That's like you see that with people in the Air Force, man.
Do you remember?
Air Force training.
Do you remember Moonraker when he's on that? Do you remember? Do you remember that? He's suffering all those G's.
Yeah,
that's what I
James
felt
Bond.
like.
Yeah,
and I thought I'm either going to kill myself, kill somebody else, or just going to have a bad crash. And I took the executive decision. I had that bike for 2 years, and it was wild. It's a typical 4-cylinder bike, so it's all top end rush. So 6,000 RPM, off it goes. 9,000 RPM, the wheel comes off the ground, and everything lights up on the dash. And it wasn't for the rider aids, that thing would have spat me off. And so I thought, do you know what, this is it. So I chopped it in for a 1200 BMW, but a boxer.
Right.
So it's all mid-range punch. So it's never gonna. Okay. It's got no top end rush.
Yeah.
But it's all mid-range. So if you're going up on Exmoor, come be up 2 or 3 cars, snap, bang, you passed them. But just going back to that, I mean, this is how wild that S1000 are. I can remember going up on Exmoor, and I don't know if you know the roads up by the Rally's Cross again.
Yeah.
The big sweeping bends.
Lovely
I can remember, this is no word of a lie, I can remember catching up some Lamborghinis on a day out, and foolish, I know, but one Lamborghini was overtaking another, and I got past both of them on the outside, tapped my elbows in. I was in charge. I was showing this boss.
That's amazing.
Yeah. But I thought, so I took the executive decision to sort of tame it down a bit, because reactions aren't what I used to be.
Yeah, and also, dude, right? Let's face it. A bike's lethal if someone that's literally been riding bikes their entire life, that's as fit as you are, is almost blacking out.
Yeah.
just from like the acceleration.
And talking about biking, you talk about these idiots that say I've been 130 along the 303. Rubbish. Because you go 130 on the 303 and you go over a manhole, you'll come a foot out of the saddle. Your legs will be splayed. You'll be out the saddle.
Yeah.
It's Jackanory. They haven't been 130 on. It's rubbish. Controlling a bike is something else. It really is.
It's funny because obviously it's like something that I've never got into, but I can see like the passion of people that are into biking. It's like something else.
Oh,
it's like a brotherhood or like a cult or something. It's
like surfing. It's one with nature.
Yeah.
You've got Lamborghini Performance for like lemonade money, haven't you? And you can go up on it. This is what I like to do. On a spring morning, get up at 4 a.m, go up on Exmoor. You can do a 200-mile loop, not see another vehicle. You can enjoy the roads, and then as you're coming home, you get home for 9 o'clock. The traffic's going the other way, and you've had a great day.
Yeah.
And you smell the bike, you can smell the oil, you can smell the fuel, you can smell nature, and there's nothing like it. And you've got that acceleration. I mean, bikes these days, they exceed every speed limit in this country in first gear. I mean, 0-60 in 2 seconds. It's nothing like it. And to experience that, even in a fast car, it's nothing like a motorcycle. Yeah.
Feeling that wind in your face like that.
Yeah, and you're on the edge.
Yeah,
When you bomb around that next corner, there could be mud, dirt, diesel, animals, tractors. You just know. It almost puts a grin on your face.
Yeah.
You think, wow.
So exhilarating.
That's cool,
Yeah, that's for me. My mistakes. Like, I'm not the most aware person in the world. Like, so I love that, and I love
everybody
the
that
feeling
knows
of it.
you, man's like
all my crashes, all my things have just been really stupid, silly awareness things. It's not so much that I'm like going super fast and I've made a stupid mistake like that. It's like awareness things, like filtering past a load of cars when
Has
they're
a
slowing
perception.
down, and it's it's the last car at the end. The reason everyone's slowing down is because the last car at the end is going to turn right into that, and they don't see you. Do you know what I mean? Like that was that was a bad one, and my sister was on the back, so that was like a real like, a bit of an eye opener. But it's all little things like that, like not from just pure speed, but you have got to be so aware and like hyper tuned into the moment, because if you're not, those kind of bad things can happen. Pretty crazy, but bikes.
What would you say? Okay, so out of all the bikes you've ever had, because I know you've had a lot, even in the last 10 years, how many bikes must you have had? Like 15, 20?
I couldn't have lost count.
Yeah, man,
Yeah.
Actually, before I ask you
All
that
the
question,
different flavours.
Yeah.
well, obviously, because I'm a complete layman when it comes to this sort of stuff. Was that BMW you're on about? Was that more brutal than the B-King? With that Suzuki B-King?
Yeah, because the B-King's like a turbine, it's linear.
Right.
So the B-King's probably a faster bike, but it's bigger, heavier, more planted, and it's linear. It doesn't catch you out. Okay. It's like a turbine. It's like...
You can predict it.
Yeah.
It's predictable.
When you hit the power band in the S1000, it's almost like, where
like
did
a
that
light
come
switch.
from?
It's like a light switch, all or nothing. Whereas the B-King is just
Hyperspeed.
like a smooth turbine.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's just that engine.
It's like warp drive.
Yeah. It's a higher booster engine. Exactly. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, because have you still got the B-King?
Yeah, I've still got the B-King.
You still got?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Because that's quite like a legendary bike, isn't it?
Do you know, it's a Marmite bike, but
right.
now they've disappeared, people are wanting them.
Because it's quite a big chunky thing, isn't it?
Big chunky
I remember
bike.
seeing it, and it was
not the most comfortable bike to ride.
Yeah.
It really isn't. And at slow speed, it's heavy. You feel the weight.
Yeah.
At speed, it's okay. And it's got no driver aids.
It's one of those things, though, like if ever I'm like just chatting to somebody and they're really into bikes or something, and I go, oh yeah, like my uncle's like, more into bikes than anybody, and they go, oh okay, like so what sort of stuff has he had? And I try and think of which one you said, and then as soon as I say Suzuki B-King, they're like, wow.
It's a legend, bike. It really is an animal. I mean, it was the fastest naked production bike in the world in its day.
Yeah, I always remember you saying that.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
It's weird as well with like the thrill you get with certain bikes compared to say like engine size and that. Like my first bigger bike was an FZR 600, so not a phaser, like the kind of sporty before the like Yam R6 and that, like the one before that. So I think it was like a mid-90s kind of sport bike, duo shock frame or something.
Okay.
Really nice, like really balanced, and 600 4-cylinder. And
was that a Thundercat?
Thundercat, no.
Before the Thundercats, was it?
I don't know. I think so. But like, it looked like an R6 really, but just with a different kind of fairings and a bit older looking and everything. But I used to love that, and with the 4-cylinder, you would hit the power band and then it would go, and I just loved that feeling of riding. And then I had like my second bigger bike was a Aprilia Falco SL 1000.
Completely different.
Yeah, V-twin.
Yeah. Different power delivery.
And but I missed so much like the power delivery.
Top end rush.
It was I just loved that feeling. So and it was like, and I'd get slipped up on the V-twin. It's like I'd kick it down a gear and then it would spin out and
Nothing
stuff.
left.
It's just you know what I mean. And like the wheel would just start spinning without even revving it and stuff. And it's that lower grunt, that torque that you get from there. And I didn't like that as much as like winding it up and then there's something about that. And I think it's more, that was probably because it was my first one as well. It's like you stick with that first exhilarating feeling that you've had when you first going up into like the bigger
That's your
engines
benchmark.
and stuff.
That's your benchmark.
And even my last one, XSR
Yamaha
700. It was a bigger engine 700, but like 3-cylinder engine. But I think that was way more mid-rangey. It was like the way it was tuned or something. But even that, I was like, it wasn't my first bike. My first Yami Sports when I'm over the front like this. Do you know what I mean? So it's just strange with all the different flavors you get with bikes, and the different engines and that. But I want to get one of those because they did 1,000cc of that as well, and I'm like, I wish I would of the.
What would you say, like, sort of like, I don't know how to word it, like the 5 coolest bikes you've had, or the 5 most noteworthy bikes, or your 5 favourite bikes you've had? Like, what would you say, Don? Because you've had so many. I remember I saw it was quite like a charming looking little bike. It wasn't like a big monster or anything, but I remember like a year or two ago, you put up this picture on Instagram, and you always surprise me because you've got all these cool stuff in lockup, haven't you? You've got loads of cool stuff in lockup, like all sorts of stuff. And I'm not just talking about bikes, I'm talking about all sorts of stuff. But it was like this nice little white. It was like a white Yamaha with red and blue on it.
Okay.
It was like a nice, charming little bike, and you said you'd had it in lockup since like the 80s or something.
Oh, the
and it was like impeccable condition,
like a trials bike,
like everything you have. It was impeccable condition.
Was it like a trials bike?
Yeah.
That I tell you the story behind that. Growing up in Cannington, there was a farm labourer who lived at the bottom of the road.
Yeah.
He passed away recently, unfortunately, and he had.
Rest in peace, sir.
Yeah, he was a nice guy actually. He had a big monster. Bear in mind, this is the early 80s. Big monster trials bike. Big 600 single Kawasaki KLR 600.
Oh right.
And it was 1984 on an A-Reg. I can remember it. And I used to watch him go up the road. No crash helmet. Different world back then. And he used to bomb up the road. Wheelie up the road. And I used to think, do you know what? I want one of those.
Yeah.
And I saved and saved. And I mean, back then, brand new, they were like £2,000. And riders of Bridgewater were based at Monmouth Street,
right,
of all places, and they were Kawasaki agents. And I went in there and I ordered a brand new KLR 600 in ebony. And I had that bike, and I've had it ever since. And it never did. I mean, today it'd be quite tame, but at the time I loved that bike.
Yeah.
It's why, and I did some modifications on it. But it was KLR.
It looked nice though as well, man. I remember it looked impeccable. Like I remember I sort of read the Instagram post and you said you bought it in the 80s, but like in terms of the condition, you just thought it was brand new out the showroom. Like I said, you're so good at looking after stuff. That's one thing I've always admired about you.
Things with a motorcycle, if you don't look after it, it's going to go wrong badly.
Yeah.
Someone's going to fall off. And that's it.
Similar to a car in that regard, but more extreme.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because if something falls off, comes undone, that's it. It's game over.
Yeah, and let's face it, that's dodgy as well. If you're on a bike and you're going 80 miles an hour or something.
Yeah.
I learned a lesson with this at the Yamaha that I just had as well. I didn't like get the sprockets and that checked out before. When I first got it, because it had done about 19,000 miles or something.
Yeah.
And I was wazzing it up and down the 303, like lubing the chain up and everything, like making sure, you know what I mean, checking the tension and stuff like that. Then riding a bit hard one day, and I just felt the chain skip.
Yep.
And I was like, oh,
that's your front sprocket spinning, wasn't it?
Yeah. And I didn't kind of realise that, and I was like, oh, what's going on? Is it take it in? And they're like, mate, that's the worst one we've seen in like 10 years or something. It was literally like they were like worn down to just like little bumps, And I'd been hitting it too hard, and I don't think the sprocket had been changed for, because they have got like a lifespan, haven't they? It's
definitely.
like a perishable part, right? It's not
absolutely.
something you just have on for all of the bike's life. And I think they say normally around like 10,000 miles or something.
Depends how you ride it as well.
Yeah. So that was it. I just a bit too hard and and I was like, right, okay, maintenance is so important. all those things, you know. And that isn't, and you learn that with bikes, because in a car, things do go right. You've got to get it serviced and that, but it's not as hands-on, especially nowadays. Like I remember seeing my dad, he'd always be fixing something up or doing something himself. But like now, I don't think you can do that as much with modern cars, like with all the electronics and everything like that. But it used to be a thing that it was like you would be more hands-on with it. And I think
you've still got
that with bikes.
Now it's like a computer.
It is.
Yeah.
So you can still kind of do your own maintenance a lot. And
you're so right, because in the olden days, if a car won't start, it's going to be one of two things. It's going to be electrics or it's going to be fuel.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
Yeah.
But now it could be 100 things.
Yeah. Yeah, I say. I can imagine it's not so fun being a mechanic nowadays in that regard.
It's just a fitter, aren't you?
Yeah.
Take the old parts off.
Yeah.
Put the new parts on.
Yeah. Yeah, because I say, one of the things also I remember about being younger, because you would always have like project cars.
Always.
I remember like it almost seemed like in my young mind anyway, it almost seemed like every time I was like round your house, there'd be like a new, cool, interesting car on the driveway, and it was like a car that you wouldn't really see on the road.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm talking like this is like back in the early to mid 90s. You had some really, really interesting cars. I remember talking to a colleague of ours before we started. Yeah, about that. I remember you had like this old Vauxhall car, and it used to be like it was an old police car that obviously was then tuned to bomb it and catch criminals and stuff like that down motorways and stuff.
Yeah.
But it was just all spray paint in black and everything. It didn't look like a cop car anymore. But I remember all these really charming, interesting cars that I would just sit in as a little boy. And, a lot of them, wouldn't obviously have... Obviously, back in the 90s, cars started having CD players, or they'd at least have tape players and stuff like that, and start having like little buttons and maybe some heated seats and that. But because where a lot of them were like classics, it would just be bare.
Completely.
But you'd just hear the engine, it'd have a nice gear stick.
Yes.
Like nice, like quirky seats and everything. I used to love sitting in those, dude. Yeah, because I said you used to just sort of like get them, didn't you? You'd get sort of like sort of do-a-upper cars.
Yeah, always.
And then you do
Project, always.
Yeah, and I used to, that was so nice, man. Some of the cars, I mean, I wouldn't even know what half the name, what any of their names were, but some really interesting cars. I remember that Vauxhall one. What did you say it was called? A Vauxhall?
It was a Vauxhall Senator 24 valve.
Yeah.
Real 3 litre 24 valve engine. Really nice car. Very underrated motor car.
So back in those days, like, how would you even like hear about these cars to get hold of them?
Basically, I mean, you didn't have eBay, so it was Auto Trader, Exchange and Mart, local ads paper.
So they still had Auto Trader back in those days.
It was a magazine.
Yeah. Oh right. I didn't even know that.
It was all
I didn't even
magazines.
know that.
And we used to have a local paper, say the Bridgewater Mercury, and we had a local paper called The Scan, and also local. I bought a lot of cars from cards in the village shops,
Right.
where someone would be selling a car, and it was cheap, and always used to go for a project, something that needed work doing, and I knew I could do it.
Because then you get a good price for it as
massive.
well, get a good deal, and you know how to like do it up. That's perfect, you know.
Yeah, you get something with running problems or MOT failure, and then just a summer project.
I'd say sometimes you'd have them for a long time, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
You'd have them for like 6 months, a year, I swear sometimes.
And either sell them on for a bit of a
profit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you'd enjoy them for a little while, enjoy them for 3 months, and then sell them on or
some
something.
cracking cars. I mean,
No, sorry, dude. I know. I was just going to say. I remember you've still got one of them, haven't you, in lockup?
I've still got that blue Cavalier.
Yeah, because I remember I thought that was so nice. Man.
Oh, it was. Yeah.
I can picture it. Like, so what year Cavalier was that?
That's 1979 on a T.
Yeah.
But it's got a real hot engine in it, so it's totally standard outside.
Yeah.
But it's got a real hot engine in it.
I remember it's almost like, was it like sky blue, something like that?
It was like, I think it was called something like pastel blue.
Yeah, but it was almost had like a shine to it. I remember
it did.
that.
Yeah.
Like a beautiful colour
Yeah,
blue.
with a
Like,
white stripe down the side.
You wouldn't even see that shade of blue on cars nowadays.
No.
And I just remember sitting it, and I just remember just thinking like, this is like the coolest car I've ever been in.
I used to love driving that car.
And I remember like, being like, half your height, and I just remember you being like, oh, it hasn't got like a tape player or a CD or a radio or anything, and you just be like, don't need a dude, just listen to the engine, man.
Yeah.
And it would just sound sweet. It had almost like that sort of like that muscle car sound. That's how I can remember it in my head, because it almost looked like a muscle car. I suppose a lot of cars in like the 70s did. If you think about more of like those sort of like American, I guess they're more famous in America, but like those American muscle cars sort of looked a bit like that, and just had this lush sounding engine.
Great. Yeah.
And I remember you sort of like, you've done it up so it was super smart. I remember giving it like a new gear stick and stuff
new
like
engine.
that, so it looked like immaculate.
Oh, it's great. I mean, the plan was to let Daisy have it when she passed the test, but it didn't work out. So
yeah, man.
Yeah, not that she would have driven it probably, but
yeah. Well, dude, I mean, talk about missing out on something. Like, imagine having that as like a car, man.
Yeah.
Jeez Louise.
It's probably a little bit too quick to learn in, but
yeah. But imagine just like cruising around in that in your 17.
Yeah.
Like the coolest person around, man.
I remember a few years ago I bought a game with a few niggles. It was I was bidding on eBay and got it at such a low price. It was a Chevrolet Camaro 5.7.
Nice.
Left-hand drive American car, registered in this country, and what a car that was.
Yeah.
That straight through exhaust pipes on it.
What was that, like V8, V10?
V8, 5.7 V8,
Right.
TPI engine, something like 350, 400 brake horsepower, auto. And you could just send it sideways around the corner, straight through exhaust pipes. It was just absolutely, I used to love driving that car. It was great.
Yeah, I do like muscle cars. I say, I love the sound of them.
I got one in the garage now, haven't I?
What that
Rover?
Yeah, that nice.
V8.
Mate, I still need to have a look at that.
Yeah.
When the weather gets a bit nicer, if that's all right, dude, let me know.
Yeah,
and
I'll recommission it.
And me, I'll come out. I'll sit in the back.
Yeah. I was gonna say,
Mate, you'd be welcome.
dude, I love that. Yeah,
V8 Rover with a manual gearbox.
And then we'll just go on like a nice big drive or something. Maybe go to lunch somewhere, somewhere of your choosing, man. Just wherever you want. And I would love that, because I said it's. The thing is, as well, it's like being in like a car like that, especially with somebody that knows what they're doing, that's bought the right car and then done the right work that individual car needs. You're sitting in like a piece of history, and like you're not going to find another car like that, because as I said, the way you look after these vehicles and do them up, it's like by the time you've put them on the road, it's like when they came out of the showroom all those decades ago.
Yeah.
So it's like being in a part of like living history, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as I said, hearing some of those engines and that, cars are just different nowadays, aren't they? There's a lot of them are the fun's taken out of them.
Totally. Boring as anything.
And you can see like the quality of something like the interior and stuff was a bit more upmarket.
All
back
hand
in
built,
those
every
days.
nut and bolt done up by hand. No robots. That's the thing, isn't it?
Different time, man.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I was going to ask you as well. No, sorry. Did you want to say something, dude?
No.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask you. Do you still have your Harley Davidson?
Yeah.
Nice, man. Because you've done that right up as well, haven't you?
Absolutely. It's got a 2-litre engine in it now.
Whoa.
Yeah. Been on a rolling road, and so it's finely tuned. But I got to be honest with you, it's probably the most uncomfortable motorcycle I've ever bought.
Yeah.
Because it's such a handful. Because even
it's
though
just like a
how
big,
heavy it is.
like,
yeah, I mean, it's a 2016 bike, but it's designed on a 1970s bike, so it's got skinny little wheels on it,
Right.
and it's got what we call drag bars, so they're big wide bars like this, drag bars. But because I've had this 2-litre Screaming Eagle engine in it, it is so powerful and so fast, but with old technology. And if you ride it to Minehead and back, I kid you not, A, I think all my teeth are going to drop out, and B, I've got to sit down with the light out for a little while because you're shaking and because of the vibration, you got a headache.
Right, I see.
It's not like a big cruiser. It's
Go out for a 10-minute spin and then that's
true,
enough.
honestly.
you get off and you're like,
Yeah, seriously, it's hard work. It's tiring.
wow.
It's not a pleasure to ride. It looks amazing.
Looks
it
cool.
sounds amazing. You know, when you throttle off, flames come out the exhaust. It's all black, no chrome, with gold mag wheels.
I remember
Proper 70s.
I remember once I was around Grandma's house and I was I remember I got there and Grandma was like, oh yeah, Dom's gonna be back in a minute. Just like, I swear about like 2 or 3 minutes before you even came down the lane, I just started hearing like just hearing this this rumble, and then by the time you're on the street, I could like just inside the house, it was a big old country house with thick walls. I could just, it was like vibrating the living room, man. Just like
It's wild.
you could, like hear you coming a mile off, man.
Yeah.
It's like funny though, you know.
Yeah.
Because you had one of those Fat Boys,
I had
didn't
a
you,
Fat
back in the
Boy.
day, which is the car, which is the famous bike. Obviously not the exact one, but that Arnold Schwarzenegger rides in Terminator 2. As the T800, isn't it? That's what he's on. In
Fat Boy.
Terminator 2.
It's the icon. People don't really know much about Harleys. That's the iconic Harley go-to bike, isn't it?
It looks so nice. It looks amazing.
It's the most boring bike to ride.
Really?
Oh yeah, it's just
Quite slow and
heavy.
just heavy,
Yeah, and you
So
can't,
it's not fast or anything like that.
No, and you can't corner it because it's got running boards and they grind out.
Yeah.
It's just
cruise.
Yeah.
So really with Harley Davidson, it's all about, I guess, by the sound of things, it's about like the look and the culture of it. But in terms of performance, they're rubbish.
They are. I mean, they're designed for sort of straight line sort of pleasure. But if you start
Better for American roads where it's just really long highways.
and they hate rain as well. They can go downhill in a year. You know,
Really?
everything tarnishes, everything rusts.
Yeah.
They're not designed for this country really.
Wow.
And yeah, if you start modding them, then it's a road. It's a difficult road to come back from. They're not not a pleasure. That's the thing, unfortunately.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you a little bit because recently you quit your job as a police officer, didn't you?
Yes.
And obviously, as we said, you were a police officer for like 25 years. So if it's all right, man, I would want to just like ask you a couple of things about that. You know, just all sorts really, man. Like nothing necessarily in particular. I think it's one of those interesting. It's almost like a funny subject, isn't it? Like police officers, because a lot of people just really don't like the police nowadays.
They've got a bad press at the moment, haven't they?
Yeah, they've got bad press.
Yeah, real bad press.
Yeah. And I mean, I think obviously some of that is warranted, but it does, I have to say, and I think obviously where you are, my uncle, it does wind me up probably more than most. Some people almost like talk by default, obviously like that all police officers are bad. And obviously I do take exception to that, obviously, because like you're one of the most decent guys I know. And like, you know, like down to earth, like salt of the earth guys I know. And also apart from anything else, like, you know, I owe, apart from the fact that, you know, you are obviously like my blood, my uncle, you know, my family, which means more than anything. You know what I mean? I owe a lot to you as well. Do you know what I mean? I got in trouble a couple of times when I was younger, and you know, you were really decent to me, and really helped me out. But not just that, but I mean, I've heard other, you know, the things I've heard from other people as well, like people that you don't even know that have like found out that you're my uncle, and then have come to me and said like, oh man, I can't believe like how sound your uncle is. You know, I was doing like 100 miles an hour on like a motorbike, like down like Dunbull Straight the other day, and I saw the lights and. You know, I thought that was it. I thought I was going to get the book thrown at me, and then you're saying that, you know, that you were really sound, like the way you handled it. It was like just completely. You're basically just saying like, look, you need to be like, just be careful, like for your own safety and for other people's safety. But you know, blah blah blah. Just like being really, really sound, not like one of those guys that's just like throwing their power around, power trip, trying to throw the book at people and stuff. But yeah, you know, it does bother me a little bit. As I said, I've had bad experiences with coppers in the past. I think a lot of people, if not all people, have. I know that even like my mum has, for example. You know, I know a lot of people that have. But I said there are good police officers out there, and I think at the end of the day, what it all comes down to is it's just people, isn't it? You get good people and bad people. Some good people are teachers, some bad people are teachers. Some good people are coppers, some bad people are coppers. You could go in the Sainsbury's and there'd be some, you know, some jack off, you know, on the checkout, and then there might, you know, you might go to a different checkout. It might be the nicest lady you've ever met. Yeah. You know, so it's just
completely right.
Life is Russian roulette, isn't it? You know, so it's I think to like put someone in a group and be like, oh, you know, oh well, you know, they're a police officer or this or that, you know. But yeah, like I guess like for a start, like what made you want to get in? I think I probably know the answer to this, but what made you want to become a police officer like back in the day?
I guess I thought maybe I could make a difference.
Yeah.
And I like the idea, like you said yourself, I like the idea of helping those that need help. Not some idiot that's been thumped because he's been to the palace and he's sort of been chasing someone else's girlfriend. Not idiots like that, but true victims of crime. People that really need...
the helpless.
Yeah, and people that need a little bit of time and spend a bit of time with them and try and say they veered off track, get them back on track.
Yeah.
Help them out, or sort of people that have been true victims of crime, just help them out. Just give them the opportunity to give them a bit of time and a bit of direction. That's really...
I guess it ties in a little bit of what we were saying, like at the beginning of the show today, like almost like it's about being that, doing yourself justice, doing your family justice, and being like a decent member of your community, isn't it? It's like you were wanting to do that. You wanted to get these people and make sure that they were like that. They were self-sufficient. They were back on track. They could do themselves justice and their family justice and the society, whether it's somebody that's maybe a victim of crime or maybe someone that's committed a crime that you're then helping get them back on track. Because I said one thing that I think's really, really sort of, let's say a lot of police officers don't do is you really, really kind to some of the people. I guess you go by a case-by-case basis because some people are just scum, and maybe some people, let's face it, hopefully not many, but some people are beyond redemption almost, and they've just decided that their life is, whatever it is, like, die hard criminal, whether that's, I don't know, sex trafficking, whatever, but say one thing that I've seen with you is you are actually really caring to some of the people that you've arrested and stuff, because you were actually on the TV, weren't you?
Yeah, I was.
Ago?
I was picked to, because I'm very old fashioned. I was a very old fashioned sort of style and ethics
on
beliefs.
the foot, like walking around.
So I was basically asked, then told I would be doing it, and I made it quite clear that I would just be going about my business whether there's camera there or not. Yeah. So if you don't like what you see, then tough luck.
Yeah.
And I find that education's better than prosecution all day long. If a homeless guy has been out shoplifting or he's about to shoplift, I'd rather put my hand in my pocket and buy him a...
That's what I was going to say. That's one of the things that like I've seen you do, and I know it's like...
But I got severely criticised for that.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
See, this is one of those things that, like, I don't understand that. Like, why would you get criticised?
Well, because it's all about arrest and prosecution and...
Dude, I was so, like, almost like humbled as, like, a fellow human being. Like when I saw that, and I said, I know other stories as well. Like, yeah, like, arresting someone obviously for shoplifting. Let's face it, like, yeah, you shouldn't shoplift. Why should some people have to pay for their stuff and then other people get away with it? Obviously, that's not right. But to have, like, the kindness to arrest somebody for shoplifting, but then when they, they break down, they're crying, they genuinely, even if it's their fault, they've gotten themselves into the situation in life where, they're starving or whatever, and they literally have to, like, temporarily steal to live. For you to, out of the goodness of your own heart, to then, you basically pay for what they were going to steal.
Yeah.
And then give it to them. Man, that's humbling, dude. That's an amazing thing to do, man.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, I mean, I don't force religion on anyone, but I've had a religious upbringing. It's my beliefs, but I don't.
Yeah, I know.
I haven't got the armband on. I don't force anything on anyone.
No, I know, dude.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think there's a lot to be said though. Whether it's through, like, Christianity or whatever, if you have those values, those decent values, you want to, like, stand up for what's good and what's right, and you want to have like, I don't want to say, like, sympathy, because that's almost like patronising.
Well, it's like the ripple effect that it can cause as well when you're good and kind to someone, and that sometimes they need to see that from a world that's not like that so much sometimes.
Yeah, if they've had a brutal upbringing and all they know is hatred.
You don't know. Who knows what impact that could have on their lives, and then what kind of change you can make. And that is, like, if you were having a positive change in the world, like, that's yeah, sometimes you can get stuck in a rut. If you're brought up by people, you're unfortunate enough that all your parents do is take and squabble, and they're trying to F each other over, and that's all they ever try and do, and they're, pull the wool over each other's eyes. Yeah, you're kind of like a product of it. And
you think that's what the world is like, so you do it, you think if you want something in life, I got to take it through underhanded means. I got to, if I want something, I need to steal it, or I need to get, sometimes you need, some people like that need to show, like, no, actually, there's a different way. You can there are decent people out there, you know, that you could, you know, you don't need to lie and you don't need to steal, and you know you can do things another way. And I think sometimes you show people that could completely turn their life around. That could completely change their life.
Yeah.
But what was the reason that you decided to? Again, I think with like my original question, because when I asked you why you got into the force, I thought that would be your answer. Why? Just making a difference, man. Like I know that's like part of like who you are, and let's face it, you're like the man for the job as well. You know, both with your ethics and with like, you know, your physicality. Everything about you was like tailor made for something like that, like making a difference. But what was the reason that you decided to leave the force? Because it was only about 6 months ago, less than that.
Yeah, basically, it's not the job I've joined. I mean, you were trusted. Yeah, it's the most scrutinised organisation in the country, but you were trusted to go out there and make your decision on what you saw in front of you. But now, discretion is not a word that can be used or followed. Everything is questioned and scrutinised. Why did you do this? Why did you do that? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? And there's computer systems running behind computer systems asking questions. You know, why didn't you cross this T and dot this I? And unless you're with someone, every day is different. Every job's different. And I always deal with what's in front of me. I don't go there thinking about, well, you know, how can I square this away, or, you know, get this person arrested, blah blah blah. I want the best positive
outcome for this.
And that is no longer an option these days. And I found I was a very square peg in a very round hole.
Right.
Might be my age, my upbringing, my generation, but
you're more like old-fashioned, black and white.
Yeah.
But also not just black and white, but also like you're malleable. Like you'll adapt to a situation, and using your experience and everything and what you think is best, your common sense, etc. Know what's best for a situation and be able to adapt to that, rather than following a strict set of like rules. This is what you have to do, and if you don't do it, you're in trouble.
Life isn't always like that, but then
you can't Drew. You can't go in and deal with the incident and start, you know, quoting the law and legislation to someone. You got to listen to how they talk, talk their language, and get on an even key or even path with them, and get them to understand what you're trying to achieve here. And that no longer seems to exist, and it just wasn't for me.
So you disagree with the way that the police in this country are sort of doing things at the moment?
Well, I didn't like what I was seeing and the way I was being, the team I was on. I didn't like the way it was being looked after, if you like. It wasn't working for me at all, not at all. Right.
So I mean, I don't know. I don't want to obviously like put you on the spot because I don't know how much you want to talk about it. Like, and are there any like sort of like without obviously naming names, any like particular situations or examples you can think of, like bad experiences you had on the job, like from?
Not really, but it was an accumulation of things.
Lots of little things.
Yeah, I mean,
little changes in the way that you had to do things day to day.
When you've got certain managers that know you and trust you, and they understand how you operate and you understand what they want. It's a smooth oiled machine, isn't it? When nothing stays the same, as you know. When management changes and people come in with new rules,
agendas,
for themselves,
agendas,
possibly newly promoted, so everything they've learnt out of a book. That's not how, you know, that doesn't mesh on the street. And you can't.
I guess was that like, I can imagine that'd be really frustrating. You see it in pretty much any profession, like whereas you obviously had like 20 plus years, you know, learning, as I said, like on the street, whether it's dealing with people that are victims of crime, whether it's dealing with dead bodies, whether it's chasing, you know, people down the canal or whatever situation you're in, you know, you're dealing with it at the time on the street, you know, real life experience. I can imagine if there's somebody that's like 20 years younger than you, that's like, you know, some book smart person, but somebody that's, you know, never been in those situations and they're trying to tell you how to do it. Let's face it, that's going to rub you up the wrong way, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, that's naturally, I think anybody that's listening would agree that's going to wind you up a little bit, isn't
completely,
it? You know?
Completely. So, you know, enough's enough, and I've had some great times, but certainly not the last few months of my career weren't good times at all.
Really?
No.
Sorry to hear that, man. Well, I'll tell you what though, they've lost a great police officer, man.
Well, it's nice.
And as I say, I think
thousands
guys
would disagree, but
I think guys like you are almost like a dying breed in terms of like the police force.
I mean, all I say in my defence is this: when I walk, I can walk up through Bridgewater town,
and
I bump into all and sundry that I've potentially dealt with, and it's all, you know. It's,
whether it's people that you've helped or arrested.
Yeah,
even.
and I've never had any threats, aggression. It's all handshakes. How you doing? And all the time I've made arrests, I've never had to bundle someone into custody. I've walked them in.
Dude, I say,
and that says everything to me.
Yeah, man, I say I'm always super proud, man, because I said there's been like several times when people have found out that I'm your nephew, they're like, man, I see their eyes like that, and they're like, oh man, like he helped me so much or something like that. And you know, it's obviously that's so nice for me to hear. You know, hear that like someone so close to me.
Oh, it's touching.
Like such a close family member has like, had such a positive impact on
Yeah.
somebody, especially because, let's face it, as I said, because the police do have such a bad
They do. At the moment, it's terrible.
reputation in a lot of ways, you know. But I think, you know, another thing, you know, as you said, I mean, I remember even like a couple of years ago, how often nowadays do you see actually like a police officer on foot? You know, you usually see them there, almost like a boy racer. You see them in their cars, like dogging out the public in some lay-by somewhere.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? No, it's similar, isn't it?
Yeah.
Whereas like you'd walk up through the centre of town,
Yeah.
I'd see you talk, I'd bump into you like, you know, on the way to the bank or something. You'd be talking to people, whether it was little boys, you know, that are just like, you know, little hampy boys.
Yeah.
Oh, Mister, you know,
Yeah,
being
that's right.
cheeky.
Yeah.
Or whether it's, you know, old ladies or just anybody.
Yeah.
You know, and that's such a rare thing now, being part of the community and also making making the general public feel like you're on their side.
Completely.
You're not there ready to spring some fee or some...
It's a shame because it feels like that. You
Yes.
don't always feel like the police are like on your side.
Yeah, I think that's the problem.
But you know, but having that positive impact on people's lives and on your community, like that's obviously a super important. And for me, that's kind of the morals and the ethics that it should all stand and be based on.
There to
but
serve
it
the
doesn't-
public.
Yeah,
There to
not
serve the public.
numbers and things like that, or like
Just
you know,
ready to
it's
spring
like,
a
what
fine.
impact can you have on people's lives? You know, and make it
definitely, man. Definitely, man.
more positive, more safe.
What would you say? I don't know, like, you know, again, I don't know what you'd want to talk about on air. What would you say are like some of the more like noteworthy, crazy stuff that you've like seen over the years as a policeman? Because in your like 25-year career, you must have. Well, I know that you've told me some stuff in the past. I won't say anything, but I know that you've seen some crazy stuff. So, what would you say are some of like the more noteworthy things? Whether it's like, you know, I don't know, dangerous experiences, crazy experiences. What would you say, you know, if you had to name like a couple, does anything spring to mind? I know it's hard when you're put on the spot.
Do you know what, Calum? I say this with my hand on my heart. You kind of deal with everything.
Yeah.
The same. You kind of go into, dare I say it, police mode, and you just deal with it. And tomorrow's another day. Yeah. And tomorrow's another day.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been some horrific things, upsetting things. But you kind of thing is, when you go to you're first on the scene before any other emergency services turn up. Eyes are on you, and of course, everyone today or the last few years have had iPhones. They're filming you, and you can't afford to sort of take a step back. What am I going to do here? You kind of instantly there, instantly go and you just deal with it. One thing that will stay with me, a mistake I made, was early 2000s. It was early hours of the morning. A car had come off the road and gone into a arena, and it was totally submerged. I was first on the scene, and I was with a special constable at the time. And the driver of the car, so it was boyfriend and girlfriend. Boyfriend was up on the embankment, and the car was upside down in the arena. All you could see is one tyre sticking out of the water. And another car had stopped, a mother and a son of about 18. So I pull up. They tell me that there's a female trapped in the car. So I take my body armour off, dive in, get her out of the car, drag her up the steep embankment, and try to conduct CPR.
Yeah, resuscitator.
Try to. By this time, the ambulance turns up, takes her off. Then I have to start doing traffic, directing traffic, because we need to close the road.
Sure.
I then find out later that she died on her way to hospital. And a couple of things. Her dad wanted to meet everybody that was there. So he wanted to see me first on the scene. And of course his question was, why were 3 people stood on the embankment and not in the water helping my daughter? And it's difficult to explain to somebody that everyone deals with shock in a different way. Not everyone's cut out to be heroes.
Jump in the water and smash the window or whatever.
Some people, they don't know what to do they? They freeze.
Yeah.
So I said, you really got to take that into account. Yeah, it's easy to sort of, raise an eyebrow and think, why weren't they trying to save my daughter? And I said, but you mustn't blame them. And I said that that's what happened. But something else happened. Where I just went into police mode. I hate using that terminology. I didn't once stop and see how the special constable was doing. I didn't afterwards, because I was soaking wet, sort of,
Dude, there was a lot going on. You had a lot on your plate.
It upset him so much, and he felt such a spare part that he quit.
Really?
He didn't fall out with me, because I still see him now. We're still friends.
Mentally, it was too much for him to deal with.
Yeah, and he didn't know what to do. I didn't give him any direction. And
you were too busy acting, man.
And I didn't debrief him afterwards. Are you okay?
Right.
And I selfishly didn't think he needed it, but obviously he did. And he said he felt so useless, he just quit. And I feel guilty for that. So that, of all the things, I've had people come after me with knives and all the rest of it. I'm not being big-headed. I'm not saying I'm a tough guy, but that it's nothing.
Dude, bats and knives. You are a tough guy, man.
Well,
you're just also a very humble guy.
But over years, you know how to deal with these people.
Yeah.
Not many people know how to use a knife. But anyway, I felt guilty for not.
I love that. That's such like a dumb quote, man. That's
So I felt guilty for speaking to the father was hard. That was tough.
Yeah.
And trying to make him understand, but not debriefing that special at the end of that shift. I just sort of got out my wet clothes, see a Rob, and that was the end of it. Dude,
at the end of the day, man, you had so much on your plate at that moment. Do you know what I mean? Like this. Talk about sensory overload. You turn up to a scene. You're just trying to make a clear picture of what's going on. You see this tyre coming out. There's a guy on the bank. There's a woman and a guy there that are probably going like that, blurting out information at 100 miles an hour, as I can imagine.
Yeah.
And then you're having to think about, okay, there's a person in there. Okay, how am I even going to get them out? I need to get them out. Like, do you know what I mean? I don't know actually how simple or hard it was for you to get them out. Like, could you just open the door or what? Like,
you had to go underwater. And you just go into bionic mode, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, that's what.
But
I mean,
you had that was a tall order, and I can't imagine the water was that clear.
It was horrible. It was like
muddy
acid. It was stinging me,
Yeah, well, there you go. So it's like you probably couldn't even see what you were doing.
I think sort of cattle were urinating in it, and
it's that similar. You can't be hard on yourself. I say the last thing on your agenda at the time in terms of priorities. As I said, I'm not saying I can completely see why it's a big deal for you, but debriefing that guy was as important as that was. There was a hell of a lot of list of extremely important priorities that you had that were over that you needed to prioritize over doing that, man. And you're just a human being as well at the end of the day, man.
So that's the one job that sticks with me, I guess.
That's the one out of all of them.
Really.
Because I can remember you telling me some like pretty I mean, they're funny in hindsight, aren't they? I mean, for a lot of people it would be like traumatic PTSD type events, but I remember you telling me some pretty funny stories about you getting words of like, like big time drug dealers from the city coming down to Bridgewater, and then you're getting like tip offs and, sort of like following them into like Crowley Gardens and stuff. I remember it's always like, bro, almost like getting like in a fight with like these two drug dealers.
I locked myself in a flat. And they'd already, one of the biggest drug dealers in town had his arms and legs broken by these two lads from
Who
London.
were obviously he owed money to.
Yeah.
Because they're saying, let's face it, it's all like a chain.
And they were hiding in this flat, so I basically called in a few favours from some local lads, and they told me where they were, and I got the key and I locked myself in the flat, and they had nowhere to go except for me. So they had two choices, didn't they?
Yeah, man.
And it was going to go south for them rapidly.
Yeah. Because I remember you said at first they were trying to be like, hey bro, brother. And I remember you told me, you were like, I'm not your brother.
Yeah.
I could just imagine you saying it as well, dude.
Yeah.
And then obviously they switched from trying to do the friendly approach, like, hey man, what bro, and then to like the more aggressive approach.
And it saddens me because that kind of contact, I mean, at the time, anyone in that station could say, I'm after so and so. I would know exactly where to go and find that person.
I
mean, for instance, there was a guy that was wanted, and he'd gone into hiding, and there was talk of him having a firearm.
Right.
And they had all these special units, these special vans of people, that I fall out those sort of sort of parts of the police, and they they're driving around like Miss Daisy. There's no way they're going to find him anyway. I find out where he is, and I tell a family member, I'll be round in a plain car, pick him up, no handcuffs. All he's got to do is get in the front seat with me. Two men together drive in. He's wanted, And I told my skipper at the time, oh no, you can't do that, firearm, XYZ. I said, this is the once, I got a 10-minute window. to get him in. Once in a lifetime opportunity. A, they're not trusting me. B, they're thinking about all the the logistics and the paperwork. Again, they should.
So what's going to get the job done? What's going to be the best situation for everyone? But they won't let you do that.
No, years gone by, they would have said, do your thing, unorthodox as it may be. Yeah. But anyway, I said, well, I'm going to get him in. So I pull up, like I said, plain car, open the door. He comes in, sits in the car with me. I drive him in like two men, and that kind of. I'm not saying I'm better. Again, with the training, I'm not saying I'm better than anybody, but that's gone forever now. I've built up 20 plus years of contacts and built up trust of most unsavoury people in the town, and I've not been able to pass that on to anyone, and I feel confident no one else will have that ability now to go and to do that.
Well, as I said, that like that sort of stuff, what you were just talking about, that might not be in like the what's the word I'm looking for, like the school book or whatever.
Yeah, the police handbook. Yeah,
but it's like what I said earlier about being like malleable and adapt to the situations. Okay, like what's the best way to handle this? So if you've got this guy that's maybe a little bit unhinged, he's clearly violent, he's clearly dangerous, he might have a gun. What's the best way to handle it? As I said, you went into him like an open book, man to man. Yeah. Okay, brother, come on, this is the right thing to do. I'm not here to hurt you. Yeah. We know this is the right thing to do. Or what, you're going to send some special unit there? Come on, and what, you're going to increase the chance of casualties? Or is someone going to get shot?
He'll end up getting filled in, and he'll hate the police even more.
Yeah, and then if he does get out, maybe in like 6 years, 10 years, 15 years, whatever, or like a year even, maybe, who knows? Whatever.
I'll tell you something, people like that never forget. Yeah. Because they used to talk to me about things that happened 15 years ago.
Mate,
how they've been chest prodded, thumped, filled in by XYZ, old cops,
Dude, I've had a couple of instances with police in the past, like, when I was like, teenagers and that, and every now and again to this day I still think about a person and say it never lets me it doesn't like make me skew my image of the police force entirely, but I think about that individual situation, I think what an absolute TOSSER, I think and I just think what an absolute KNOB.
Well, I can.
If it wasn't for the fact that, but I am in a situation where I have an uncle like you, where I'm almost privileged to know that not all coppers are like that. A lot of people aren't in my shoes. They don't have that connection with a copper.
They only have the connections that they've experienced.
Without those negative experiences. And without the positive aspect or knowing somebody on such a personal level like I do, that might be all they know. Yeah. So no wonder that they don't like the coppers. They don't like the police. But that's on those police. Yeah, I mean, it's a shame.
Years ago when I used to train cops, and it is years ago, I used to say to them, when you speak to somebody or stop a car, that's probably the first time they've ever interacted with. So just remember that. Yeah. I mean, today you've got your camera on, everything's scrutinised, but back then you didn't have that back in or that knowledge, I better behave myself, the camera's on. It's about you as a person, dealing with that person. You didn't need that. You didn't need that to say, I've done my job properly.
It's about decency and honesty.
Yeah. Why wouldn't you treat that person properly?
Yeah, man. Well, that's why. That's one of the reasons I've always looked up to you so much, man.
Thanks, mate. And I appreciate that, man.
It's reminding me of what you were saying about how the councils are almost being eaten up and going to like one centralised power.
Did you hear about that, Don? But obviously, obviously there's like West Somerset Council, Sedgemoor, blah, blah, blah. Yes. Did you know that's all going away?
I have heard something.
It's going to just be like one big Somerset Council.
But it seems like, you get these big overarching rules. This is the way that it's going to be. This is like where we're going. And it takes a lot of that personal like communication and thing out of that community, but like smaller groups that know the community that you're in, like that build connections, build trust, build like,
that sense of community.
That is so valuable because it could be the thing that's the difference between something going south or something like
you can't tell me
okay, like how do they not see that is more valuable? Because I don't get it. Do you know what I mean? It seems like the world's going the other way, and I get a bit confused. It's like, we're getting more technological and like all this stuff, but where's those like grassroots?
You can't
values?
Tell me it's a good idea to take away all the individual districts and make one big council, because what you're going to have, one office are you somewhere in Somerset, and you're expecting that person to have an interest, and to have incentive to care about every single little village in the far corners, whether it's, Porlock or Bath or Yeovil, really? Of course, like even the most well-intentioned guy, you just can't manage that. No, you just can't manage it. Do you know what I mean?
Our personal contact's gone forever.
Yeah. You just can't manage it.
Never come back. I mean,
I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I
doubt it.
Lucky to grow up in a village, and we had village bobbies. Yeah. And that village bobby knew everything. Knew everybody, knew everything.
And not even just that, dude, but even little things like your baker, your local shop, you have a connection with people, and then they will look after you. You know, that's Don Bryant. I know that this is how he likes. I know this is how he likes it. You know, so I'll always make sure. Or I know that he always comes in for this. So I'm going to make sure there's some in stock. Yeah, little things like that.
What a difference.
You know, like that's that community stuff's
means
gone.
so much more, doesn't it?
Like, doesn't it?
Yeah. You know, just little things like that, man. You know, but just to wrap up, dude. I just wanted to finish off again. Just saying, it was like so cool, man. That's like growing up with you as my uncle. As I said, I think you were 19 years old when I was born. So obviously, you know, like quite a bit younger than my mum and dad. And obviously my dad was always like a sportsman and would sort of like watch all sorts of movies and stuff. But one of the things that really shaped me as a person, like I don't even know if you know, man, like even you know how much you shaped me as a person. But those years, like growing up from literally like my earliest memories, just like growing up on like, you know, Van Damme movies, like Jean-Claude Van Damme movies, Bruce Lee movies, all the Arnold Schwarzenegger movies. You know, like horror movies, you know, Evil Dead. Yeah. Like these are all things that are like key parts of my personality to this day. And obviously, you know, my dad was never like a gamer or anything, but obviously where you were a bit younger, where you were like in your late teens when I was born, you know, you had all like what at the time were the state-of-the-art games consoles. So I'm talking like, you know, the original Sega, you know, SNES. Super Nintendo, and all those memories of like, you know, chilling out with, you know, and when the N64 came out, what a legendary console, playing GoldenEye and Rogue Squadron with you and Lisa, your old girlfriend Lisa. Say shout out to Lisa because she was such a nice woman.
She is probably one of the nicest human beings I've had the privilege to meet to this day. What a lovely girl. Oh,
lovely person, honestly. Like if on the off chance that Lisa like hears this, just like just shout out to you, Lisa. What a lovely woman and such a nice person to just be around as like a kid. Was just lovely. I don't know. There's nothing else to say about that. She's just a lovely person. Yeah, just a lovely person.
She still is.
Yeah. One of those people. I'll probably see her like once every 6 years or something like that. Just randomly see her somewhere, but whenever I do, I'm like genuinely happy I've seen her. You know, even if she can't see me, even if it's because I'm like in a car or something, I'm just like. You see someone you like think that highly of someone. Oh, I'm real glad I saw that person. Like it's really, it's what a nice person, man. But such good memories, man. Like
thanks, man. That means so much.
No, honestly, dude. Like I said, such a massive impact on me. Whether it was the training or those cultural influences. You know, as I said, Roadhouse, Dalton. You know, Roadhouse, Patrick Swayze. You know,
the trouble is, right, and I'm the first to admit this. I'm still stuck in that void.
Mate, it's a good void to be in.
It is, and that's one of my biggest sort of downfalls. Why
it's not a downfall, man.
Well, why I've taken a different direction in life then is because I'm the same man as I've always been.
Yeah.
But I'm no longer allowed to be that person.
Yeah.
Because my outlook and upbringing and dealings are deemed as old-fashioned and no longer applicable, which is utter nonsense.
Yeah.
Utter nonsense.
Yeah, man. As I said, it's not a bad place to be there. You just got those old-fashioned morals, man.
Yeah, I mean, I watch every day, Minder, Sweeney, professionals. You know, proper hard men, fast cars, punch-up, shooting. But always doing the right thing.
Yeah,
so having that moral code to stand by.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
I mean, I still now open the door for everyone.
Yeah.
I'll always walk on the outside of the pavement. Always. You know, those values will stay with me to the day I die.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't cost anything, does it?
No.
Dude, the world would be a better place if more people did have those values.
I mean, I don't care, just quickly, I don't care anyone's outlooks, pronouns, what LGBT, whatever it is.
Yeah.
That's fine. I don't want it forced on me. I wouldn't force it on anyone else.
Yeah.
You know, and
that's it.
I treat everybody just the same.
Yeah.
I really do. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah,
I don't know why people are jumping on this rainbow. It makes no difference to boxing, no difference to training, no difference to the person you are, does it?
No, it doesn't.
Everyone can be a victim if they want, but I don't know why they're jumping on this wagon.
Well, unfortunately, dude, I think a lot of it is just, I think a lot of people are sheep. I think a lot of people are that. It's just jumping on the bandwagon.
And lockdown hasn't helped either, is it?
No, I think lockdown obviously had an effect on some people. And I think a lot of it as well is unfortunately, some people want attention, but maybe they're going about it the wrong way. Rather than, you know, it's harder to get attention doing something where, you know, whether getting good at an instrument, becoming an amazing athlete, like to get attention in that way is hard because it's a lot of hard work. To get attention by trying to turn yourself or portray yourself as a victim, let's face it, it's a lot easier.
Yeah.
And that's not anything, you know, let's face it, there are some real victims in the world, and that's not, you know, that's obviously not putting them down, obviously. You know, people like that, as we've been talking about a lot today, they need the most help, you know, and going about it in the right way. But it's the people that are doing it for attention. You know, because let's face it, we've all been through hard times. We've probably all been bullied at some point or another. All been probably beaten up at some point or another. All been through bad breakups. All sorts.
But you talk about minority ethnics. I feel like the minority ethnic in the some divisions, some worlds, because you think a heterosexual male in his 50s, a single man, and so people don't respect my feelings.
That's right.
The world I grew up in. I mean, for instance, I turned up at school once with a pair of Doc Martens on. I got properly filled in.
Mm-hmm.
Not a black eye, I got properly filled in because they thought, what were you, some sort of, you think you're a tough guy?
Mm. Yeah.
If I went to that same school and said, I'm wearing a skirt today,
yeah,
it just just wouldn't happen, would it?
No, not be here today.
No, but that's the world I grew up in.
Yeah.
People need to respect that.
Well, I think
understand that.
I think I've had some like sort of deep chats with different people in the past about this, but I think unfortunately what you're seeing now, and this is so not the way that you should go about life or the way you should treat people. The way you should treat people is like, as you said, treat people the same and judge people on a case-by-case basis. So never judge somebody on their profession, their race, their religion, whatever. Take somebody as an individual. Okay, if this person's obviously being sound to me, being a decent human being, then obviously I'm going to be sound to them too. If for some reason they're being a jackass to me, then I'm probably not going to be the nicest person in the world to them as well.
It's like forcing to impose things on you.
Yeah,
that's weird, isn't it?
But what you...
And judging the way you look.
What you see now is more like there's almost like a hierarchy. So there's like a hierarchy or like a spectrum of and it's almost like as you said, Dom, it's almost like if you're a heterosexual white male, then it's almost like by default you're scum, or your opinion is the least because apparently we're like the devil.
Yep.
And then it's like on the extreme other end of that. So if you're some like multi-ethnic, multi-sexual, polyamorous, whatever, genderless person, then by default you're amazing, and nobody can say anything against that person because they're an angel, and don't you dare victimize that person. But if you're like a white male, then you're almost like, and who cares about you? You're like almost like a scumbag, And it's like, what weird sort of society is that?
People are people. Just be judged
Where's
on your
respect?
actions.
Exactly.
Yeah, you should have a default level of respect for everyone.
Yeah.
And then from that, be judged as an individual.
And then if they don't respect you, then do you know what I mean? That's where it crosses that line, and it's like, okay, now you've infringed on me, but otherwise, go do what you want. Like, it's cool. Like,
and it's like, you see,
don't enforce things on me.
70% of all suicides now are just normal men in this country.
Yeah,
in the UK. Yeah, 70% of all suicides, and it's like, well, it's no wonder why, really. It's like a lot. Let's face it. Don't get me wrong, there are some scumbag guys in this, but let's face it, what are they? 5-10% of the population? The other 90-95% of the population are guys that work hard, probably provide for their missus, provide for their kids, probably a lot of the time thankless by society, thankless maybe by the woman you're with. Unfortunately, obviously there are a lot of good women that are very thankful to their partners, luckily. But, that's not always the case. So you're working yourself to death, to no thanks, paying out all this money, to no thanks. It's expected of you rather than appreciated. Where's that respect gone for the father figure, for the grandfather figure, for the man in the society? No wonder men are killing themselves. Because it's a thankless world. It's a thankless world, dude. Where's the respect? Where's the thanks?
Good question.
Yeah. So.
Good question.
But yeah, man. I think just sort of like try and leave it on a positive note. I think as I said, let's try and as a society, people, let's treat everyone with respect. Let's say base level of respect for everyone, whether you are that, straight heterosexual white dude, or whether you are the opposite of that, whether you are, regardless of religion, race, creed, whatever you are, let's treat each other with a bit of respect, not have these silly hierarchies or treating people by default in a certain way, and treat, I know it sounds cliche, but treat people how you want to be treated, man.
Completely.
Here. But anyway, dude, as I said, you're a massive inspiration to me. I'm so thankful to have grown up with a role model like yourself and someone that's taught me so much, whether it's how freaking cool the Canadian tuxedo is, double denim.
Still wear it now.
I said action movies, horror movies, introducing me to awesome computer games, and just being a good role model to me, whether it's in the gym or as a man. Thank you so much, Dom. You are a proper legend, man's man. There are 2, maybe 3 guys in this planet that if they told me to jump, I would say how high, and you are one of them, man. And it'll always be that way till the day I die.
Mate, thank you. You don't know what that means to me. And Drew, thank you both for inviting me here.
Mate, legend. We'll do it again, yeah?
Beautiful.
We'll do it again, man.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers, man.
Guys. Thank you.